Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings. We're back once again with Ramblings 95. Yep, we're only 5 away. 5 minutes away. Sorry, 5 minutes. 5 ramblings away from 100 live ramblings. 100 weeks without a break, I think. Yeah, without a break. Where I've sat down in front of a computer and rambled away at an audience. What a milestone we are approaching. Let me just do this quickly. That should work. Yeah, there we go. And let's see if this works. If this works, I'll be very happy if I've done it right. No, it hasn't. Sadly, I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. Will that work? Yeah. Well, I'll have to talk to Ruin about trying to set that button up, but never mind, it's fine. It works as it should do. Right, okay, so, without further ado, let's say hi to our audience. Hello, YouTube Minecraft watcher. Hello, Timu. Hello, AMC Woods. Hello, Brackman. All the nice, friendly people who are here. It's always nice to see you. So, without further ado, let's get into the Patreon questions, since none of these are questions that require any special panel members. So, Brandon Larson asks, what would a modernized Conqueror-class battleship look like if it was refit in the 80s or 90s with NATO weapons and other combat systems? If you want a blunt answer, given the size of Conqueror, you're basically looking at the only real reason to retain her and to upgrade her in that period is the same reason that you would be retaining and upgrading Iowa. It's command and control, and in an era before VLS, an ability to have a very heavy missile throw weight for a surface-based capital ship. Exactly the same reasons the US rebuilt the Iowas. Like the Iowas, Conqueror has the space, if rebuilt, for a decent amidships battery of Harpoon and Tomahawk. And you can probably also, because of the way she's arranged, you can probably also get some Sea-Wiz positioned in a manner that's not going to be rendered vulnerable by the blast effects of her guns. Although you might have to limit the firing arcs of those guns. They probably won't be able to fire over the shoulder anymore.
Well, yeah, you have to take out at least one set of primary batteries. Because I guess we're talking about the Congos, right?
What?
Was it Congos or Conqueror?
Conqueror.
Okay.
World of Warships Conqueror, not the Congos. Yeah, no.
Then you probably have to take out the batteries on Conqueror.
I'm not sure you would. It would depend on the level of refit you're doing. And honestly, if you are if you're retaining, the thing is that adds way too much cost. And if you're retaining an asset like this, I feel like A, getting rid of the turrets adds cost. B, you're losing part of what makes the ship, the ship, the way it looks and the presence of it and the power of it. And thirdly, given the amount of amidship space you do have on Conqueror, especially with stuff like the boat deck and the... I mean...
Because, when we actually... Conqueror is out of one of the 3 top-tier British battleships we actually know what design it's based off, right? It's based off one of the late war line designs.
Yeah.
Which are post... No, I thought they're 1941.
38.
Even then, the problem you run into...
Let me speak. And those designs, it's even worse for the 38 ones, for the 16-inch to the 12, 16-inch guns. They have very, very, very little spare displacement. They are riding their displacement limits because those ships are bloody dense. So if you want to start adding missile systems, which are heavy, you have to start taking out weight.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think the first thing that needs to go is the I forget. Conqueror in World of Warships, she carries she has a,
5.25s.
yeah, she's got 2 sets of remove a good chunk of the 5.25 and the Bofors, although they probably would have already gone by this point if we're talking about the 80s and 90s. That's still not going to be enough. The problem I'm running into is I'm looking at the work you would have to do to even get a basic level of usability out of the ship that would involve fitting it with missiles, and that would be the reason you would be retaining this ship rather than building a new ship. Because she's just not a very good candidate for it.
Yeah, she's incredibly well optimized to be a battleship.
Yeah, she's not a good candidate for the whole... Like, the thing with the Iowas is because of their length, the length of them to get the speed out of them that they got, yet, see, as soon as you start talking about pulling out main battery turrets, we're in the realms of this is no longer economically viable, / this is no longer worth it. Because, given that you're talking about using a battleship for this, it's one thing to rebuild and refit cruisers around a new technology in the 60s and 70s. Or heck, the 50s and 60s, like they did with the Galvestons and the other Clevelands that were reworked. It's entirely another to look at a full-on battleship, especially something like Conqueror, that will be seen as the largest and best ship in the Royal Navy, even if she's at that point in the Deep Reserve, and look at the cost of the work you would have to do compared to building a new ship to get the command and control and missile capability that you want. And the moment you start removing main battery turrets and the weight and cost that will involve, especially when it comes to the calculations you're going to have to do and the ballast you're going to have to add to rebalance the ship once the weight of that turret or turrets is removed, the costs start to spiral exponentially.
Yeah, and consider that Conqueror, even if we take her the smaller design she's based off of, is still 48,000 tons, up to possibly 56.
Now, if we're talking...
She's not even an hour in rebuild. She's bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, like, this is the thing. When it comes to rebuildable battleships, things like Vanguard... Because, again, things like the Vanguard, things like the Iowas, because of the length of them, because of the amount of space between their fore and aft batteries, they are realistic candidates for reworking in this fashion. Conqueror just isn't.
We'll quickly point out Conqueror's not quite as small as you're saying in terms of length.
No, it's more...
Conqueror's not small in length, but she's dense. There's not a lot of secondary spaces on her that you got on ships like Iowa and Vanguard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, like, this is the thing. It's basically in order. So just to actually answer the question, if she is refitted, but I did just want to go down this tangent to basically express my opinion on this whole idea before I went into it, and I'm glad Foxo was going down the same path with me. But if we are to refit it, as Foxo says, you're going to pull out turrets. And at that point, if you're pulling out turrets, I'm going whole ham. I'm pulling out the entire aft battery. And
entire aft. You keep the fore battery, though.
Yeah, I'm pulling out the entire aft battery. I'm fitting a hangar and flight deck for at least 3 to 4 helos. Ideally 3 to 4 large helos, which gives me the ability in wartime. Say if I can carry 3 to 4 Sea Kings in yes, I will run on in a second. I'm mid flow, but once I've done that, I will pull this Patreon question into the Q&A. But yes, I'm gonna carry 3 to 4 Sea King size helos or 5 to 7 Lynx Wildcat style helos in the aft hangar. I'm gonna retrunk the funneling, concentrate it in a single funnel. I'm gonna keep probably just for simplicity, the forward super firing pair of 5.25-inch mounts, just because it's simpler to keep them and their fire control and their magazines as a secondary battery for dealing with things you don't want to use the... basically,
No, they're gone.
No, they're kept. They're kept.
No,
No,
I don't
because
think
if you look at the designs, it's something that you see with Lion. Those barbettes are some of the main structural membranes of her bow.
You keep
her keel.
You keep the barbettes, but you don't. You keep the barbette. Since you keep the barbettes, but I'm saying you no longer have the 5.25. You probably actually see them swapped out to probably 3-inch.
Oh yeah,
like for
the primary battery is what I meant.
Like,
those barbettes.
That's what I mean. I'm just saying that, but you don't see by the time you're going for this refit, she's probably already had a refit where those 5.25s have been swapped out for the twin 76s.
Probably not. Actually,
I'm not sure.
Maybe the automatic 4.5s.
Yeah.
The automatic 4.5s, they fit on that barbette.
Possibly, but I'm going
even
off the ship.
Even the 3-inch fit on it.
I'm going off the ship as it is in World of Warships so that I can avoid that sort of speculation.
Now my counterpoint is we actually have an example of the logical step up, and they do move over to using the 3-inch for the AA on them.
Well,
yeah, but that's devastation. She's pulled out the ass.
It's devastation, and it's also Feastable. I want to say her name is.
I understand that, but in order to simplify my construction calculations and the choices I have to make, I'm sticking with the ship as it is, assuming it's been in deep reserve. Because if I start speculating about what hypothetical refits it might have had post-war, I'm never going to get to actually rebuilding the ship itself. Unfortunately. But I will argue that while I will probably the super firing aft 4.5s, they're probably going to go just completely, along with a complete rework of the aft superstructure to accommodate, the helicopter hangar and the flight deck. Ideally with a spot for landing and takeoff to be conducted at the same time. That's how big a flight deck I'm talking about here. We're talking about a total rework of the stern, basically. Very heavy work here. I'm going to keep the super firing pair either side of the bridge of the twin 5.25s, and the reason I'm keeping them, or at least I'm going to keep them, or I'm going to switch them to... Actually, I'm probably just going to keep them, because it's simpler, because, as I say, the barbettes are an important part of the superstructure, and if I'm keeping the barbettes, obviously I can't keep the aft turrets for the 5.25s, but that's fine. But if I'm forced to keep the forward ones, then for the same reasons that the Iowas kept their 5-inch 38s in the rebuild that they got, I'm gonna keep the 5.25 mounts, the forward twin pair, basically because they're easy to keep. They're by this point very reliable mounts. They're a useful adjutant to the forward. The two forward triple 16.5s we're keeping. No, we're not modernizing Vanguard. We've been asked to modernize Conqueror in the 80s. It's not a practical thing to do, but we're just going with it because that's what the question asked us to do.
I would say replace at least 2 mounts per side of the automatic 4.5-inch.
That's gonna because of the way that mount works. That single automatic 3-inch. So you said automatic 4.5. Oh no, because that's going to be the automatic anti-aircraft fire apparatus is going elsewhere. So
because it'll fit on those barbettes.
The reason I'm not going to is A, cost, and B, because I have another plan for the upgrading of my automatic AA firepower. So all of the octuple pom-poms. I think is she armed with pom-poms or both? As I can't tell.
Both.
Well, in that case, then all of those. If she has any Bofors that are twin radar guided, they can stay, because if we do,
it's all radar guided.
Yeah.
It's the quad stag spec looks.
Okay, that's fine. So the quad
twins and sextuples.
The twins.
is it?
The twins
Oh,
can
Thunder's
stay.
got the quads.
Yeah, the twins can stay because if we're refitting her in the 80s, then the Falklands War will have happened/happening, and their usefulness, will be, the fact that they probably need to stay should be fairly obvious. The sextuples can go, and obviously that extra weight can be used elsewhere. At the aft, just in front of where, in the new superstructure, in front of where the new hangar is, I'm probably gonna put a single Otto Malera 3-inch mount, one per side. Probably using the fact that it's not a deck penetrating mount to put it on top of the hangar, on each wing, at the extreme forward bit of the hangar, which basically is to provide a air defense arc in the ship's rear. Forward of the hangar, where the twin 4-5 mounts and the rear sextuple Bofors mounts would have been, I'm going to have box launchers for Tomahawk and Harpoon. Then obviously can't really change the radar because the blast effect of the main guns, and the shock effect of them going through the ship, so the electronics suite will have to remain as is, as best. Well, we'll do the upgrades we can do, but there's only so much you can do when you've got the things going on. Excuse me one second, folks.
I mean, Thinner Fleet didn't want to do absolutely major retrofitting to the ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just checked.
Hang on.
Those gun mounts for the 4.5s are part of the bracing for the armor belt. So if you start screwing around with those, you're going to have to modify the armor belt. And in the 1980s, that's not going to be cheap. If I move correctly.
Oh boy.
Oh, and Dr. Clark's trying to get in.
Hello.
Hello.
I heard a modification to a 4.5-inch guns and an armor belt. What's going on here?
We've been asked to refit
Oh, boy.
HMS Conqueror from World of Warships in the 1980s post-Falklands War.
Well, it didn't say post-Falklands War specifically, but obviously that by the time the refit starts, you would assume that would have happened, been and gone. But obviously, the whole thing with refitting Conqueror is that she's a really bad candidate for it, because you have to start lifting turrets out to get any realistic usable space for stuff like box launchers for missiles, etc. And at that point, if you're talking about lifting out turrets and the work you have to do to rebalance the ship after that point, you're already in the region of cost where just build a new ship. At that point, just build a new ship. But all that aside, I was just on my run through of my hypothetical design. So since I do have to lift,
right, heads up, in text chat, that's the ship we're working with.
yeah. So, so if I'm gonna have to lift turrets, I lifted both rear mounts, and I'm gonna completely rework the rear superstructure to give her a helicopter hangar and flight deck. Forward of that, we'll have box launchers for Harpoon and Tomahawk. On top of that hangar, we'll have some non-deck penetrating 3-inch 2 singles, just to provide some coverage in that rear arc, because that rear coverage from AA fire has been lost because of the redesign of the hangar. Get rid of the sextuple Bofors mounts, keep the twins, upgrade their radar direction. Get rid of the 2 rear 5.25 mounts, keep the 2 forward 5.25 mounts, just for simplicity and ease of cost. And then once we've done that, obviously rework the electronics as best you can. Obviously, there's only so modern you can go before the shock of those forward 16.5-inch guns going off will do nasty things to the to the radars. But overall, if I have to rebuild her, that's what I would do for the 80s and 90s, because that gives the Royal Navy a fairly decent surface action group leader that can not only provide a heavy salvo throw weight of anti-ship missiles for whatever it's leading, but also provide a large suite of anti-submarine search helicopters.
I do need to just put out a correction. There is a little bit of dead space in the superstructure you can use. But that's in the center of the superstructure.
A little...
Where the catapult was designed to be.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what I can fit in there. And I'm not sure I'd want to put anything in there too closely, because I'm thinking, right amid the funnels, even if I am retrunking them. In fact, that's probably where I'm going to retrunk them too, actually, so...
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I do, and if you do...
That's actually a fairly easy model to work with. It's a fairly standard model. Those are deck penetrating 4.5, so you just lift them out, replace them with Automalera Super Rapides.
Those are 5.25s.
5.25s. Even that's even more space to replace them. I could just get rid of them, and I can store a lot more 3-inch guns, 3-inch guns. I don't need the 5.25s in there.
I feel
I
like
can place some Super Rapides because they're 1985.
Adding cost.
It's really not. I don't. Let's put it this way. In a nice way, a Super Rapide is not going to take up anywhere near that space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in a nice way, that's just a plug and play storage, and that frees up internal space for me in terms of where I'm storing ammunition. I can get rid of the 5.25, and that means I don't have to maintain 5.25 in terms of logistical support or anything in terms of that. So I can move entirely onto Super Rapide.
We're not going to go for the 4.5 though, because that's already in service.
No. Because that's too close to the 5.25 in terms of space it's going to take up, and there's a reason I'm going with the 3-inch. Okay?
Okay.
The 4.5 plus the 4.5 honestly doesn't have that great air defense profile at that point. So frankly, and especially this is post Falklands, so I'm presuming about 1985. So that's when the Automalera Super Rapide comes into service. Roughly,
it just said 80s to 90s, so I've been going off the whole whole decade.
Yes, basically that. Yes, but that's why I'm going with. That's why I sort of think nice way the Super Rapide's ready. So if I've got a Super Rapide ready, I go with that. I would go with honestly truncating the boilers and turrets. That's going to be a lot of the work with where she's been subdivided, because she's had a lot of separation put into her boiler rooms to provide for subdivision and survival. So to truncate them into a single funnel is going to mean you're going to have to undo all that work. So you might as well leave them as 2 separate funnels and use that space in between for something like probably Harpoon. I'd replace the 40mm with Phalanx, about 4 of them.
I don't think we need that many Phalanx. Wait, are you talking 4 total or 4 per side?
4 total.
Okay, that's fine. For a second, I thought you meant 4 per side. No, you're fine. I was like, oh my god.
No, then I'd have said 8, because it would have been 8 Phalanx, wouldn't it?
Well, I wanted to make sure, okay? Because I'm looking at that and I see.
Or I'd have said 4 per side.
I just wanted to make sure, because my brain heard 4 and immediately went to a conclusion. I was like, hang on, I better just check.
Okay. You want the flight deck aft and you want the space, but honestly, you don't need to add in flag space. She's got plenty of that. She's probably got tanks already in her somewhere for aviation fuel storage as well, because it would have been built in her, but she wasn't necessarily using it. So you want to raise up to deal with the weight issue, and one of the reasons of getting rid of the guns aft, you actually want to raise her up the flight deck and move the boats to underneath the flight deck, have a hangar which probably drops down into space as well, and have a full flight deck aft. But you can taper that into the hull, so you also then provide a raised position, probably in place of some of that back superstructure, and some of the... you might not replace all the 5.25s with 3-inch guns, but I would want to have roughly, again, 4 to 6 of the Super Rapides on her. so that I can have space for putting if it's 1980s, a Sea Dart launcher either side. So she's got a Sea Dart launcher and a Seawolf launcher on either side. Which again is not that difficult because I build them up because a nice way, the sheer amount of weight of top weight that you're losing with those guns, the structure you're putting in is going to be a lot lighter.
Yeah. I mean, overall, you regardless of which of the refits you go for, either mine or Alex is slightly more. Basically, you've got two options here. Mine is the very conservative, trying to save as much cost as possible, whereas Alex is trying to get to the absolute best ship he can out of it. Either of them still gives you a decent asset.
That's a miscategorization of mine.
Yeah. Also, to be brutally honest,
That's a miscategorization.
Also, to be really honest, if you're going to be doing this, you're not doing this to save costs, really.
Yeah, and Fleet, yours won't be considered one because you'll be changing the armor belt on her.
You're also keeping 5.25 in service, or replacing it with 4.5. When, unlike the 4.5 we only have is an upper deck mount system.
Yeah.
We have, and so you'd have, because of the weight of a 4.5 going in there, you'd have to refit their entire system. Whereas with a Super Rapide, you could slot it in.
I'm not replacing 5.25 with 4.5. I was never going to.
Yeah, that was my idea.
That's part of the, but also, that's still part of the problem.
Then you have to keep you have to keep 5.25 going. You have to keep the logistics of it, the barrels of it, the maintenance of it, all the training line for it, everything going for 5.25 through the 1980s and 90s and onwards.
One thing I did mention earlier, Clark, I'm not sure if you overheard, was the idea of instead sticking the automatic 3-inch on there, the ones that you see on Tiger instead. But Fleet didn't necessarily like that idea just because it would be the complicated thing of you've now added a midlife refit to consider. Would that have been a possibility, or
the reason I went with the Super Rapide is because it's in production at that point. The British 3-inch isn't.
No, I'm more. I know. I agree. You definitely that's what you would want in this period. It's more. I'm just meaning that previously they might have been swapped out to the 3-inch.
Previously, that would have been the sensible thing to have swapped it out. To have swapped them out for the 3-inch.
And I mean, Alex is absolutely right though. If you are going to add 3-inch in the 80s, you go Super Rapide. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right with that. Like Super Rapide is just excellent.
It's just why I thought the 3-inch would be the intermediate thing because, well. It's the guns you've now got in production in the mid-time period, and now when we actually get to the point of the question, well, out with the old, in with the new.
I mean, if she was being refitted in the 50s or 60s Dragon, you're absolutely right. She probably would have.
Honestly, I'm not even sure 50s, 60s. I'm more thinking potentially late 40s even. You could potentially see it depending how quickly. But
one of the things you have to remember me and the Otto Malera Super Rapide is I remember when. This was back in the 90s. There was a discussion, 90s, early 2000s, between BAE and the owners of Otto Malera at the time about producing a twin version between BAE and them, which would be a twin 3-inch mount. And it didn't go anywhere. But I've often thought if BAE had worked with them and there'd been a BAE twin mount version of the... with sort of the Super Rapide internally, but a twin mount, twin turret holding it. You probably have a Type 31 now, which would be mounting 6 3-inch guns, because it would have 3 of those twin mounts, because if you did, that would solve all your problems, and would have made it probably the best light frigate in the world, and anyone who wasn't buying it would be looked at going, so what made you go so wrong? Because if you're thinking about if a frigate's wandering around with the ability to put 720 6-inch shells down, 720 3-inch shells downrange in 60 seconds, that's a very nice flak wall if you've got a problem.
It is.
Or if they're if they're armed with Volcano, that's 40 kilometers away is going to get deluged in the 3-inch shells. And can anyone here imagine what 720 3-inch shells do to even an armored formation at 40 kilometers range?
Even if you don't knock out any of the tanks completely, you've probably knocked off tracks, shattered viewing ports, removed logistical capability, rattled the crews somewhat. Even if you haven't destroyed any of the division's vehicles, which I consider highly unlikely, you've still rendered that division incapable of movement or battlefield operations of any real kind.
Yeah. And that would be a case of, okay, so your light frigate can do that, or if you're coming into air attack on us, don't. In the nicest way, that 723-inch fragmentation shells up in the air at about 5,000 meters from the task group. That is a nice wall of steel. Good luck getting through it.
Mm-hmm. I think we've done that one justice. So
yeah.
Next Patreon question from Brackman. Any good naval games you would recommend or look forward to in 2025, 2026? Well, I do have my recommendations that I think are still valid despite being released already. So Rule the Waves 3 is arguably best in class for what it tries to do. It has some flaws, and there are personal preference points as for why you might pick UAD over it. But as far as I'm concerned, while UAD was good, it has gone downhill since about a year ago, when they kept patching it beyond a certain point. In regards to games that aren't about the construction and strategic operations of a navy, I would say you're looking at War on the Sea is a very good one for World War II. Even though the base game is based around Guadalcanal, but you do also have modifications that can take you anywhere from hypothetical what-if scenarios of basically any form of World War II you can imagine, to the Battle of the Atlantic, to operations in the Mediterranean. The entire naval theatre of World War II is at your disposal, should you wish it. And then, of course, we've got Sea Power, which is basically that, but for the Missile Age, with continued improvements rapidly coming down the line. And it is a fantastic game. That's my 3. Anyone else got anything they want to recommend?
I've not got necessarily new games to recommend, but I would say Naval Action, which is free to play on Steam.
I think it
is surprisingly good. It's a fun little game. I quite like Pirates of the Burning Sea, as you've all guessed recently. That's become quite a fun. Skull and Bones is something I sometimes end up playing, and I'm not sure why, but I get drawn back to it. But yeah, that's sort of the free, because they're different from the sort of ones you do. Ultimate Admiral Dreadnought, of course, always a good gun to have. And there are quite... I can't talk about them because they've not been announced yet. But one of the things I will eventually be introducing Fleet to when we are towards the cycle, when it's starting, is the people who are working on the games which are going to be coming out next year and the year after of naval history games. Because that is one of the fun things me and Drac have. Okay, occasionally we get invited to go and look at the upcoming games.
Yeah. I do actually have something that I did forget I do want to mention. Because while Naval Action is good, it does have some flaws and some issues.
Oh, it does, but it's free.
True.
And it's quite fun to play. And it's going to sound strange again, but I tend to... if a game is... I judge a game to an extent by its price. If it's 50 quid, I'm expecting something that's perfect.
Yeah.
If it's something which is going to constantly charge me things, I'm expecting something that works for what's charging me. If it's free... and it's quite fun, I can overlook quite a few sins to enjoy it.
Yes. There is something that I've been watching since about 2 months ago when it was properly announced, and that is Ahoy, which is looking to be... Which is looking to be a completely... Whereas Naval Action does have some certain elements to it that are somewhat arcadey, but by necessity for the game it is... Ahoy is seeking to be a completely historically immersive simulation of the West Indies. And the sort of ships you would find out there.
Yes and no.
Okay, go on, Dragon.
Because it's... Oh, what's the other one I'm trying to think of that's a much more arcadey pirate game? What's that one called again? Can't remember its name. No. Where you do like your ship size depends on how many players you've got.
Oh,
That one, which had the Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. Ahoy is
Yes.
actually more like a more realistic version of that, considering you can
You mean Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves.
Because from what I have seen from Ahoy, I wouldn't say it is that realistic, because even they've said it's not meant to be that realistic. It's meant to be realistic enough, but it's still a case of you can play this game with 2 or 3 friends and fully man a boat of a reasonable size.
I mean, they're definitely putting the effort in for historical accuracy, if not
yeah,
realism.
hey, if anything, this is why I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you, Fleet, that it's looking good, but I wouldn't necessarily say. I think you're overselling.
I think I'm
It's
confusing
realism. It might be a
realism.
little bit of a downside.
Am I
because
confusing realism for historical accuracy? Is that what I'm doing?
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing. Yeah, I think there we go.
Because, but I will throw into the field a Dark Horse that's quite an odd game. But once you get to it, it's incredibly fun, if arcadey naval-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Unfortunately, that's not multiplayer.
Sadly, yeah.
Unfortunately, well, there's non-official Ubisoft alt multiplayer for it, shall we say. But if you want a good pirate romping around, it's fun. Naval combat's fun, the exploration's fun.
If anything, I think the problem is trying to say potential new games does not really work, because honestly, as much as it might be, but what to say, naval games are very much more on the dead end of the spectrum. They're not common at all. Yes, we've had stuff like Sea Power and such, but I would say that is a massive outlier versus the standard of games focused on naval development.
The only thing rarer than a navally based game is a naval RTS.
I was about to say, you're going to bring up RTS, aren't you? Bloody knew it, and you're unfortunately entirely right. Though, in that regard, actually, I'll quickly ask Clock, as he might know. Do you know any other programs for designing naval ships that is not Spring Sharp for statistics and such? Because UAD is really funky with some statistics. And from what we've been finding, Spring Sharp seems to be far more based around American design than necessarily generic, like how they do armor belt coverage and such.
Could I ask you to ask me that question again in about 6 months' time?
Well, by then the RP might have started, so possibly.
Because in 6 months' time, I know something will be announced and will be launching, hopefully not long after that point.
Right.
But at the moment, I can't say anything.
Fair enough. You've gave me an answer. You've given me an answer that's good enough. I've been messing around with Spring Sharp and do not like it.
On that possible spoilery bit, we're going to move on. So it's a very simple question, and the last of the Patreon questions before we get into the usual back and forth between YouTube and Discord. So, last Patreon question from Timu Locker, who asks, what is the panel's guilty pleasure that they have when they are feeling down? Well, I wouldn't say guilty pleasure, but I do enjoy a good bit of cheese. Don't feel guilty about it, though.
We need to come up with one that's PG-13.
Good luck.
If I'm feeling down, it's not much is going to change that, I'll be brutally honest. It's not a case of
Foxo to say playing Dungeons and Dragons.
The issue with him is that I've managed to shoehorn him into taking my place as the forever DM, which means I'll never let him not be the forever DM.
Now the problem is my problem with that rune on it is it would end up making me feel worse because great, I'm now also spending money as well as feeling awful. Brilliant.
Just to answer that for everyone else, Ruinon has said buying more plastic crack and/or ice cream.
Also, I need to buy some more here myself.
The Dutchman doesn't get away with not answering this one. I see you there. You got to answer this one.
Guilty pleasure. Yeah, I don't fucking know. Just like doom scrolling on Instagram or something.
Okay, I've got one. That's a bit embarrassing.
Oh, go on.
It's called a teddy bear collection.
Aww.
No, that's understandable.
And they still make pillow forts at 22.
Your current room is effectively a pillow fort.
There is nothing wrong with
There's
having a
nothing-
pillow fort.
There's nothing wrong with that. In the nicest way,
Pillow
to
forts are
quote
awesome.
I can only give the quote of my mother when she was realizing first that Iron Mouse had an entire room full of cinnamon rolls. Her phrase was, "That's a good start."
Hey.
In the nicest way, there is a reason why when Fleet came to this house, there was an entire section of the house which he wasn't taken down. It was just better for him not to have to see that sheer amount of cuddly toys that were down that end.
Probably not.
Nothing wrong with it.
Oh yeah, and so my priced one is about 1.5 meters long, carnival price sized, fluffy green dragon. That's from How to Train Your Dragon 2.
It is ironic you mention that because one of the prizes at work you can currently win is a massive toothless How to Train Your Dragon sort of plushie.
Mm-hmm.
Always cool to have.
I know exactly what the sort of things you're referring to here.
And he's on top of my wardrobe, staring at the door. He scares the dog.
Ever gets the job done.
The plushie scares the dog out of my room.
Okay, so I'm going to push the button and we're going to move into the regular back and forth. Nope, that's not it. There we go. 96831. For the panel, which universe would be the worst place to live? Azure Lane where you have ship girls but paperwork, but also girls from other universes, Sirens and the X. Or Blue Archive, where you're Sensei of Shale with paperwork and students with firearms, but have 2 AI assistants to deal with student shenanigans that are a Tuesday in Kivotos. Such as an opera house getting blown up because Problem Solver 68 decided to capture a mod boss while Sensei was trying to operate concert audio recordings at the request of the GSC. I'm pushing that one to the dedicated anime duo. Go nuts, Dragon and Foxo.
Well, do you want to... It's a question of how do you want to die? One's death by civil service. The other one is... Censored.
Indeed.
Because for all the jokes about Fox girls getting possessive, they do get possessive.
You can say that again.
But aircraft carriers also get possessive. I hate to be both.
To be fair, entire classes of Royal Navy destroyers get possessive. There's a reason why the poor Bismarck's end was always a confirmed thing the moment she sunk Hood, and it wasn't to do with any of the Royal Navy battle line. It was the fact that there were 16 Trouble class destroyers going, "Show me to your Bismarck." She might have taken a few of them with her, but they would have taken her. Leaving that to one side, yeah, I feel like I should apologize now for what's coming to you next week, Fleet. Because they're now uploaded, and there's more videos coming. But the two ones with the first one of Drac and me discussing Dreadnoughts that might have been is Wednesday. And so by next Monday, you're probably going to get deluge of a whole lot of questions. So I'm sorry.
It'll be fun.
All I can say is read up your Dreadnought books. Read them up in preparation, my friend. And you'll be fine. I'm not saying that I expect those videos to get massive amounts of attention, but they are titled Two Historians, Drakenfell, discussing battleships that might have been. Has Fleet run off, realizing that his next couple of weeks is going to be completely descended into battleships?
I don't know if he even heard your answer.
Has he gone off to the loo? So the thing is, I've apologized. He hasn't heard of the apology, so he won't be ready. But I've apologized, so it's no longer my fault.
Yep.
What did I miss?
Yeah.
So I've just got
Nothing.
a quick question for you. So
Yes.
So why was the 3223 layout for guns not used more?
Hang on. You don't get to skip the cut.
Well, it's a question I was asking because you just expand on this.
Yeah, I had to go and deal with dog for a second. But yes, go on. All right.
Quite simply, it's a problem of coordination. If you standardize the turrets, it's far easier to coordinate the control mechanisms and the targeting and aiming, because you line up a triple turret based on a centerline gun. You line up a twin turret depending on which one you consider is the dominant barrel, and which one the designers have delegated as the dominant barrel. So it makes aiming so much more difficult. So that's basically the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So could you not just designate a point in the center of the turret as where the dominant third barrel would be and aim off and coordinate off that?
You can in theory, but that means you need to make an extra hole in the turret to in the armor to sight along this imaginary line.
Ah, okay.
Brandon Larson asks, what if the Italians and Japanese fought alongside the Allies during World War II from the very beginning, although the USSR ends up staying allied with Germany? How does the war in Europe go? It's going to be a grind, it's going to be a slog, but eventually, Germany and the USSR will be ground into dust.
They will be. That's not in nicest way. That's Germany's worst nightmare, fighting that many different different scenarios.
Like, yeah, yay, the USSR is working with the Germans, so both the Germans and the USSR do have the fuel, they do have the food, but they don't have the men, they don't have the industrial base. Especially...
And also, think about it from Germany's perspective of they're invading. If you think about the amount of forces they need to now cover their Austrian border with Italy.
And also, it says from the start, so that means there's probably no fall of France either.
Well, yeah, because the nicest way, that's going to change their plans, because if they try and commit everything to France, then they're going to be dealing with a rampageous Italy coming up going, oh, we get to take a lot of Austrian territory, which we believe should belong to us.
Yeah, and the Russians will help as much as they can, but A, it's going to take time for the Russians to get the mass into Western Europe to try and attempt large-scale offensives against the French, and even if they do, they're probably going to make the stupid mistake of trying to batter their head against the Maginot Line, while letting the Germans attempt to go round it. And secondly, if Japan is in the war as well from the start, then the Imperial Japanese Army is plunging itself into eastern Siberia. And it
actually gets worse. It gets worse than that, because if you've got an alliance now which employs Japan and Britain, let alone Italy and France. Think about that from America's perspective. What was the entire Washington Treaty about from their perspective?
Curtailing Japan and Britain being allied so they don't get double-teamed.
Yes, so what's the only option in that scenario? Can you break up that alliance from externally?
Nope, you have to join it and help batter down the Germans and Russians even harder. And to be brutally honest with you, the Americans are not going to say no to a world where the worst fascist and the totalitarian communist state that has been recovering economically are no longer a part of the world order. So at that point...
Because, you know what I found interesting about this? Is that if you're coming in with the assumption that the Germans and the Soviets are allied and are working in sync with each other, when they're both sworn ideological enemies that both want each other's land,
Well,
that
yes.
both have incentive to screw each other over.
Well, yes.
Yes,
that
and,
is.
and
that
I'm
is-
sure they would at some point, but at this point, in that way, they've managed to find themselves in bed together. And you have to remember, as far as the Soviets were concerned, there was equal opportunity. Both Britain and Germany were as equally as bad as each other.
Yeah, and
As far as the Soviet Union was concerned.
And let's also not forget the fact that prior to Barbarossa, negotiations were ongoing for formal Soviet entry into the Axis. This is not as far-fetched as people think it is.
Yes, it is, because that was Molotov acting on his own. And he...
Yes, but in a scenario where, how do I put this? They've managed to structure it as an anti-imperial alliance, and Italy's not stayed as a partner. Russia suddenly becomes a far more useful partner. And also, this is going to sound strange, in a scenario where Italy hasn't joined the war, then the whole problem of Russia's invasion of Poland becomes far more of a problem. There was a very real chance of Britain and France to declare war on Russia as well as Germany with what they did in Poland.
Yeah. I would also point out...
So without Italy getting involved, that might have happened, in which case they could find themselves fighting the war against the Allies as on the same side. They might not be friends, but they're birds of a feather flock together scenario, because while they're dealing with everyone else, they can't beat each other up.
And I would also point out that the
But
Russians...
it does mean that you probably don't get any resource sharing between the two, other than, in terms of forces, only resource sharing in terms of raw materials.
Yeah, I would also point out that both of the ideological partners will... the rivals will basically look at each other and go, okay, and basically the logic will run thusly. We are in a war for survival. We need each other to survive. However, what we can do is make sure that they bleed more than we do, and we will be in the better position industrially, manpower, and with the spoils of the conflict to win the inevitable war that both sides know is going to come after they've redrawn the boundaries of the imperial world and the continental world in the Germans and Russians' case specifically in regards to what they want out of this war with the Italians, the Japanese, the British, and the French. Both sides will be angling to seize resources, materiel, and territory to gear up for the hypothetical war both know is coming between the two of them to decide who actually stands last. But that will run secondary to the whole, we need to actually survive to fight that war.
You probably end up with quite a big war, quite a big war going on in Persia.
Oh god, yeah. That's going to be massive.
Yeah,
that's what that'll be probably the British army, army in India. Quite a lot of Australia, New Zealand troops will probably end up fighting in that area.
Yeah, there'll be a big push by the Russians to secure the Persian Gulf, both for access to both for putting easily built craft like motor torpedo boats and motor gunboats in the Arabian Gulf to cut off access to Saudi Arabian oil fields via tanker, which they'll want to do, but also to directly seize the Iraqi fields and the fields in Persia.
Ultimately, I can't. In that case, I can't see the Soviet fighting on the Western Front for Germany.
Oh, they won't be. They won't.
No.
Yeah. And
it'll be a case it'll be in a nicest way. It'll be resource sharing at best, and honestly, on that side, you also have to remember how close Italy is to the German oil supplies, and where their oil supplies come from in southern Germany, Romania, those areas.
And also, with that strong of a bloc forming up against the Soviets around democratic countries and the Italians,
and the Japanese,
yeah. Hungary and Romania, not so much Hungary, but Romania could look at the bloc and go, we throw our lot in with them. They are actually fighting the Russians at this point. The Germans are not fighting the Russians.
Not
probably
really.
in a nice way, the Finns and Swedes might do so, but also there's in that scenario, do the Allies abandon Norway?
Well, no, of course not.
If Italy's part of the war supporting France.
the Allies can hold Norway.
Well, I think
And if they hold Norway, then in the nicest way, Sweden and Finland might decide to join in as well, because let's be honest, Sweden's getting pressured by both, and Finland really doesn't like Russia. And their main reason is of joining the Germans in World War II is because they have no other options for an ally who will help them fight Russia as their major threat.
Yeah.
At that point.
It's also worth pointing out that by the time we're talking, we're still in 39. The Winter War hasn't happened yet. And if the Russians try it, Finland will just fold itself into the alliance pact with everyone else as another victim of Nazi Soviet aggression.
But I still disagree with your point about Romania. They're gonna join the Axis because they're gonna be forced to. Because even if you assume that Yugoslavia doesn't fall, Romania is still surrounded and borders both Germany and the USSR. They don't really have a choice.
Yeah, well, I think they will basically try to fight, but then they will be carved up. Hungary will get its maximalist Transylvanian war goals, and Romania will be turned into almost a rights commissariat in everything but name.
So historical.
No, Romania was not that level of tied to Germany, historically. Though they had still nominal independence. But
I disagree, especially with the German dashes. No, how do you say it? Dashes?
Dacia?
Yes. And the level, especially economic control, the Americans. No, not the Americans. Because it's stuff like the occupation of the Poletsy oil fields.
Yeah, the Poletsy oil fields, yeah.
And so like the Germans occupying garrison Budapest and stuff.
But in some ways they do that because they have to for the economy and because that's the only way they can maintain these things. But the trouble is, in the nicest way, if you've got bombers based in Italy, you can get to the Poletsy oil fields anytime you friggin' want.
Mm-hmm. And of course, let's not forget that it's probably better to have Romania as a neutral. We could flip, we could flip. We could give the Allies a way into this part of the world.
If it's neutral, then the Allies can't bomb it, so you can still get oil from them.
And also,
if they're allied, they become a legitimate target.
Yeah, and also,
but there's also a chance they just get Belgiumed.
That really,
well, you're more of an access point to the Balkans and Turkey than you are an actual co-belligerent.
It's possible, yeah. What I would say, though, is in regards to a few key military angles, I just want to say the following. I think you would see limited participation by both sides in both sides' major theatres. So I do expect you would see... first of all, I don't think you see an invasion of Norway. Basically because, A, the Germans really can't pull it off at this point. Given everything that's against them. Secondly, it's basically their only real chance of keeping the Swedes possibly, maybe, just about neutral, is not to threaten Denmark and Norway. Because if they do that, that immediately possibly means the Swedes and the Finns flip.
Yes, but I've got something else. Right, Moe?
Yes.
How would this, especially if the Soviets put their foot down a lot harder, how does this affect China, and specifically communist China?
Not much.
China will just keep bubbling on.
The big thing
the
is
main
that
problem for communist China is that suddenly the Japanese could market themselves as their war in China is against the communist part, and could lead to some interesting results. Because if the Japanese think they can get the northern resource area of Russia, China suddenly becomes a pain in the backside. Whereas in this scenario, you could actually see them going, right, and we'll ally with Chiang Kai-shek to give us extra troops to go off and fight the Russians and push through the communist Chinese.
Yeah, you basically see the Japanese going, we are going to accept minimal territorial realignment and readjustment compared to what you thought we were going to accept from you, Chang. All we ask is that we have a complete
But at
ceasefire.
this point, Japan and China are already at war.
But yes.
Yes.
No, what I mean is, like, Japan's war goals against China were maximalist at this point. However, with this new war kicking off, Japan could be willing, especially if you have the option for that northern resource area, as Dr. Clark said, the table becomes massively open to a peace deal that both sides could actually accept, especially when you consider that the Japanese have learned exactly what it costs to maintain control of the areas of China beyond the sparsely populated resource-rich areas around northern Manchuria and the area towards Beijing.
Not
It's
really.
why I'm a resident Chinese
really.
expert.
It's a bit too late.
It's too late, and B, China now has the backing of the USSR. Like, even if we say the communists aren't so much a thing.
Well, no, not really. The big thing is the Soviet.
China, the communists have the backing of the USSR, but the thing is, and here's the reason why I think this might happen. It's not to do with necessarily. It's to do with, to an extent, Chiang Kai-shek being realist, with the Americans and the Brits going, look, this is the situation. We can't have you beating up one of our allies in this war. So here's the agreement we've made. They will get this bit. You guys will have peace for the war. In return, you'll get this bit of Russia, and they'll get this bit of Russia.
There is also the third alternative, however, which I think also cannot be discounted. Given Chiang Kai-shek's cooperation with the Germans, given von Falkenhaus's presence in China, the blue shirts also being a thing in China, there is also the possibility that Chiang Kai-shek and Mao both fold the Chinese United Front into this expanding Soviet-German alliance structure.
Yeah.
Which means Japan suddenly gets a blank check to do whatever it wants to do.
Yeah, but it does mean
Yeah,
that Japan...
but it's...
I'm just saying, good luck getting Mao and Chiang Kai-shek working together.
I mean, you wouldn't even have to coordinate them, just shovel guns and money in.
And they
they're just gonna end up using that resources shooting at each other, just like they did historically.
Yeah, but it's still turning China into a quagmire for this super allies.
Yeah. It'll have to
and
be
that's
going
to take a lot of resources and a lot of money.
And to be fair, if you think about it, a lot of the Soviet support didn't just go to Mao. Chiang Kai-shek also received a good amount of Soviet support.
Yeah, it does. I would consider
what I'd say though is that how do I put this polite thing? We're not talking about Japan as it historically was. We're talking about Japan with access to American-produced equipment.
I don't think...
Yeah, but coincidentally, we're also not talking about the historical Soviet Union where half it's been occupied. We're looking at the Soviet Union with its full industrial capacity.
I would question...
And it can afford to just start shoveling stuff into China.
It's still not going to have aluminium. It's still not going to have a lot of the things it needs. And you think about all the lessons they learn about their own equipment at the beginning of that war, how quickly they develop, and how important that is to development of their progress.
Yeah, and I will also point out that the Soviet army will not be motorized to nearly the same extent as historical. They are not going to have the influx of trucks they need to do it. And Soviet industry can't provide it.
That's arguable, because the Soviet industry couldn't keep up with losses. But assuming Soviet industry is intact...
I'm not sure. Soviet industry is not... Soviet industry...
Like, for example, a lot of the Soviet half-track and military truck production was in cities like Kharkiv and Kiev that get occupied quickly.
It's possible.
If they don't, and you still have a lot of Soviet industry intact, you don't get the enshittification of Soviet equipment.
It's possible.
And you get stuff like the T-34 being made to specs.
No,
the big problem is going to be the Soviets. This is going to sound strange. I'd say the big problem with the supporting China, etc., is if the Soviets are trying to do an actual proper offensive operation in Persia and that side of area, that's going to quickly use up a lot of their resources.
That's rough terrain to fight through, and even just move through. And
that's a lot of logistics, and that's what's going to suck their resources in.
Yeah. One thing the last thing I do want to touch on is the naval side of this. because while it is one-sided, I do expect to see the Soviets try and keep the programs they have running in 39 through 41 going, or accelerate them. And we know for a fact that the Germans are willing to work with them on that. I mean, after all, the Kronstadts were supposed to be armed with 15-inch guns. The exact same guns and turrets as the Bismarcks and the Scharnhorst were supposed to get.
They're gonna have so much fun.
Oh yeah,
trying to hold Black Sea and the Pacific at the same time.
I expect the only fleets that are going to see real build-up are going to be Baltic and Black. It's the only place where they have the security and the safety to do it. And more importantly, the only place that they can't be got at by... And the Northern Fleet's not an option because it's not developed enough, and the Pacific isn't an option because Vladivostok will probably fall on month 1 of the war to the Japanese. So basically, it's going to depend on how hard the Russians push it. If the Russians and the Germans do start to coordinate, because we do know that it's something they are capable of when they are at peace, and we know they can possibly do it in wartime as well, at that case, depending on how hard it goes, especially given that while the Russians are going to be tied up with various other land conflicts, none of them are existential. It's entirely possible that the Russians can basically buy time in the east by dynamiting. When it becomes clear the Japanese can't be stopped, you dynamite large sections of the Trans-Siberian Railway, and then what are they going to do? Cross Siberia in army strength? That's not really tenable.
We're going in with the assumption that the Soviets are going to lose to the Japanese, though. And the issue is, especially looking at the start of the war, the Soviets have already proved that in the east, at places like Konkan-Gol, they can quite happily whip the Japanese. And it's like...
The Japanese will be extremely overstretched, considering they are... now they have to contend with China and Russia.
Yeah, and the Soviets have shown they can get and support armies in the east.
In this kind of theoretical world, China is such a weird-ass quagmire. I don't even know how this is going to work.
Yeah. Basically, you're probably looking... Given how long this war will run, there may be a major fleet action in 44-45 in the North Sea, as the Russians combined with the Germans try to break out and do something. They're going to get smacked for it, but...
I mean, both of you to assume the British is just going to try their own version of Taranto in the North Sea.
Yeah, they are, but, I'm just thinking...
The British did Taranto, it would be the British just doing Taranto in the North Sea.
Yeah, this is basically the British are going to wait for the combined...
Please tell me, and I'm just going to clarify this. Please tell me you haven't been watching the YouTube video which says it was actually the Americans who did Taranto.
What? No,
because that guy's nuts.
No, of course not.
I mean, seriously, that guy. I have been sent 3 links to that video today, and that's the truth of Taranto was actually the Americans, and I'm going.
I'll need to see this.
No.
But basically,
Valor much.
But basically, it's going to go one of 3 ways. Either the British are going to pull a Taranto in Wilhelmshaven, and they're going to strike the combined Soviet-German fleet as it's forming up, ready to attempt to sortie, or they're going to... It's of course it's going to depend on how many losses both sides have already suffered during the war. But the British fleet's going to be stupidly large. The French fleet will exist. The Joffres will be in service. You'll have both Richelieus. You'll probably have both Richelieu successors by that point. The Italians will probably be operating in strength in the North Sea, given that, the Mediterranean is basically a lake at this point for the Allies. So the Italians...
Yeah, no, you need the Italians to bottle things up in the Black Sea.
Yeah, it's why I don't think you see the Richelieus, aside from Richelieu and Jean Bart being finished. Because the French don't need them, and the French have got a much bigger land-based problem.
Yeah.
So they might do what they did in World War One, which is army.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's what's happening with French.
Like, you won't see a large French fleet expansion. Because the French have got the Royal Navy there. and the Americans
They
and
are
the Italians.
they are gonna finish the Joffres though, because the French want carriers, especially for a war like this.
Yeah, France want carrier. France desperately need artillery piece to stop German.
Yeah, the resources that go into those aren't mutually exclusive, Foxo.
I mean, to a degree, they are.
Not
high quality steel is high quality steel.
Yeah, but Brandon Lawson, as we already said, the US is going to join this war at some point. It's just going to take a while for Roosevelt to spin it, a lot longer than historically. But there will be cash and carry as well, which I do think will make up for some of the. Yeah, the French will have the kit they need to do what they need to do, especially with the Germans being probably. It depends. Yeah, because the Germans are going to have to garrison their southern border, which they didn't have to do historically, which is going to limit their ability to. They might be able to pull off the breakthrough that they did historically into France. The problem is going to come once they've done that, because they're not going to have the British and French are going to have the time to regroup and close the pocket, because the massive German infantry divisions that allowed the Germans to prevent the closing of that pocket are just not going to be available. The Panzers are going to roll through the Ardennes as they did historically.
Why not?
The Italians are sad.
Italians.
Yeah, but you don't really need that many men to defend the Alps.
The problem is...
Not the Alps, that's the problem. Think about how the border changed with the end of World War One and the rewards that Italy got.
Yeah, we're no longer talking about an Alpine border.
Yeah, but it's mostly an Alpine border aside from near... Oh, where is it? It's Istria, isn't it? And
the problem with
even then, that's the Yugoslav border at this time, not the German border.
The problem with giving the Italians South Tyrol is that radically changes the problem is, Foxo, France in 1940, as it was historically, was a Hail Mary all or nothing for the Germans. It required everything they had and then some. If you don't have that sheer level of concentration and the ability for the Germans to bring absolutely everything in the kitchen sink to bear,
they
even with
bring everything to bear, though.
They did
because they had the divisions garrisoning the Soviet border, because it was their home border clashes at this point after the partition of Poland.
That was the.
So assuming that they're aligned means you can assume that those divisions in the east can border the Italian front.
No, that's...
You have to consider the ratio. There is nowhere near enough troops on those borders to just readjust and hold the Italian. That is a token force, and you can't just move them into the Alpine and expect them to stop an Italian offensive.
And bear in mind,
probably can, considering the state of the Italian military, but
the Italians are probably going to make gains, given how given that it'll be a 180, and the Italians will probably cross a border facing token resistance. They will probably be stopped, but the question is how far they get, and how does that change German planning?
Probably not very far. I'm just looking at the terrain. It's like mountain.
Yeah, but the Italian army is technically built for that fight.
This is one of the areas where the Italians could actually do well, and it's also one of the areas where they actually have experience fighting in terrain like this. The Ethiopian campaign was terrain like that, with even less infrastructure available to the Italians. They do have very well-trained, very well-led mountain troops.
And they do have plenty of experience after 20 battles. Battles of the
also show that battles in the mountains are the defenders' fight to lose.
Yes, and the unfortunate thing is, we're not
talking...
If
the Trango, like they fought in Ethiopia against the Germans, well, if they use chemical weapons, then...
Well, they're not going to...
Yeah.
No, they're not going to use chemical weapons. But I would also point out
Germans will actually have machine guns.
The Germans are not going to have stuff on the border when the Italians come in, because if the Italians join when the whole thing kicks off with the invasion of Poland, which is the whole scenario the question is positing, the Italians are going to get across the border. They're going to make progress. The question is, how rapidly can the Germans respond, and where are the Italians stopped? Anyway,
in Austria. It's
oh yeah, it's
far into Austria.
It depends.
It's like, have you seen the amount of troops it took for the French to defend their part of the Alps from the Italians?
Yes, I am aware, but
at points it took 6 guys in a fort to stop Italian divisions.
Yes, I am aware, but the problem is, what if
they got through still?
They got through because France capitulated. That's
not true. That the Italians did make breakthroughs in the French Alpine line, even prior to the fall of France.
Yeah, but
which is also basically defended by a token force.
Yeah, which is the whole point me and Moe are arguing. You can't. I think you're being very much too rigid.
I won't call 200,000 men a token force.
Absolutely, it's a token force when you consider how much forces was in the Battle of France.
Yes, but it's a token force on an area where we know 200,000 men can defend.
Well, yes, okay, that's fine. 200,000 men, fair enough. We're not going to be looking at that same situation for the Italian-German border. You're not even going to have even half of that. Maybe even less than that. Anyway, I feel like we have really hammered this question into the ground. And I will just give... like
Petra says, that's 2 field armies. That's...
Yeah,
okay, it's small compared to, like, Barbarossa. But...
Again, as I said...
That's almost the size of the BEF.
We've...
Anyway.
Yeah, we have really hammered this one into the ground. So, next question. YouTube Minecraft Watcher, do you have a good noble title name for a KGV battleship? Thinking something along the lines Prince of Wales or Duke of York, but not using any of the existing names. Any of the other dukedoms will do. I think any of the other dukedoms will do. There are plenty. Duke of Kent.
They are raw dukes. So it doesn't. It's not. They're not just any dukes. Basically, the reason you get the Duke of York, etc., added in is because of the abdication crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd have to be a raw duke.
And do you know any royal dukes that we can use?
I suggest HMS Sandwich.
No. No, Sandwich isn't a royal dukedom.
No, but it would be funny.
I mean, you might end up with HMS Duke of Normandy. Because if I remember correctly, the royal family still technically claim the noble title as a part of the king's domain of Normandy and Gascony.
You're limited to dukes of, in that period, Duke of Cornwall, Duke of Rothesay. You've also got the Duke of Gloucester and the Duke of Kent, which was actually created in 1934. So those tend to be those are the royal dukes. Senior of them is Duke of Cornwall, which was created in 1460. But there's an HMS Cornwall at that point, county class, isn't there? So that's also the other problem. They'd have to not conflict with the county class. So I think you probably end up with HMS Kent, Gloucester. They're both them. Edinburgh's far too late as a royal dukedom. So is York. Duke of York was used in that one scenario for that one.
Windsor?
No. Probably. It could be Rothesay. They could use the other title for Prince of Wales, the Duke of Rothesay.
That could work.
There's always the extinct dukedoms as well you can go for if you really want to. They're slightly more difficult to use, but you can use them.
Powys, Lancaster. I don't know. Was Mercia still? No.
Lancaster isn't technically a royal duchy. It is, however, it's an interesting one. Lancaster, because it's technically the Duke of Lancaster is technically the monarch. It's technically the king. So technically, if you have King George V, you already have a Duke of Lancaster. This is what caused interesting fun, though, when the Type 23 of the HMS Lancaster was being named, and there was someone going, there isn't a Duke of Lancaster, and they complained about this to the Queen, who then reminded them that she was the Duke of Lancaster. So it was her ship. At which point, that minister shut up and ran away.
I thought that was dropped after the succession of Hanover, though.
No, the Duchy of Lancaster is still there. It's like the Duchy of Cornwall is the Prince of Wales's basically income. The Duchy of Lancaster is the estate of the royal sovereign, so it's their income. So they're always the Duke of Lancaster because that's the estates which finance them. So when they talk about the royal estates, they're actually the Duchy of Lancaster's estates. That's what I'm ministered as.
Mm-hmm.
Because the monarch's technically not supposed to own and run estates because they own and run the whole country. So when they're talking about their estates, they're acting in their capacity as Duke of Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that has its roots back in the world. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So
actually, it goes back to sort of 1265, but it does have its roots in the War of Roses in terms of being the dominant Duchy of England.
Then, because I thought Hanover was in a similar position to Lancaster, where being held by the king, being the king's personal domains.
Yes.
So what happened?
But you have to remember, Hanover. There's a different rulership structure in Hanover versus England. So one is personal domain. One is these are the personal estates within his domain.
Mm-hmm.
So in Hanover, that is what he is. In England, he is the Duke of Lancaster, but that's not the important thing as far as most of the rest of the country is concerned. The important thing is, he's the king.
Ruin, are you grabbing the next Discord question, or do you want me to? Either or's fine, just wanted to know. Just I didn't want to step on your toes.
Okay, so the Duchy of Hanover wasn't held under the umbrella of King of England. So okay.
Technically, also Hanover was its own separate kingdom. Technically, I think it was. It's an interesting scenario. Electorate of Hanover. It's a whole thing.
Because Hanover's a remnant from the Holy Roman Empire.
Yes.
Yes. So you wouldn't get a Duke of Hanover then, even during the Victorian era.
No, you get. I think he's called an Elector of Hanover. He was. I think his title was Elector of Hanover. But yes, the Elector of Hanover.
But
I recall it was a favoured style of the Georges. Was the Elector of the Holy Roman Empire.
Mm.
Okay, so even if you wanted to name a ship after it, could you name a ship after the Elector of Hanover in the Royal Navy?
Let's be honest, the Royal Navy, when they wanted to name a ship after a president, found that the Board of Trade has a president, so that's why we could keep HMS President after we captured off the Americans. If you really wanted to name something after something in the Royal Navy, they would find a way to make the name work.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the thing with President was that, they also wanted to keep it because it was one of the first ships taken from the Americans in wartime. And that was a degree of renown for the name itself in Royal Navy service.
Yes, that was, but in nicest way, it's a case of they
later ships, however, it became more difficult to justify because they were, sometimes.
Yeah, it was more a case of capturing her. It was keeping her. She was also one of the ones in best condition when they captured her, so it's actually worthwhile keeping. But the thing is, they didn't want to change her name. And that caused a huge battle because quite often they rename ships. Even some of the French ships they do rename. They don't, or if they can't fit, they make them fit. And so they had to find a way to make president work in the English system.
A lot of the way that they did that, though, was they were just lazy about it and just redid the spelling. That's why we got Enterprise, because it was the French ship Enterprise.
That was with some of the friendships, yes. Yeah. In this case, it wasn't an option. They were actually told by the government that they couldn't keep the name if they couldn't find someone who it was for, because you didn't have presidents in a monarchy system. And then the British, and of course, the Royal Navy said, "Well, hang on, there's the Board of Trade." So that's why the Board of Trade, still to this day, the Minister of the Economic Minister and the Minister responsible for Trade, is able to drink at HMS President. Because technically, he or she still exercises the title, which allows them to go to HMS President.
Yeah,
makes sense. YouTube Minecraft Watcher. The panel is able to travel to any point in the Royal Navy history for a day. Which admiral or officer are they spending the day with shouting at for their dumb shouting at for their dumb decisions? I suppose it's one or the other. So if I can travel to any point in Royal Navy history, Because on the one hand, while it can be Royal Navy history, I am probably going to travel to whatever officer is nearest to Isambard Kingdom Brunel at the launching of Great Eastern, so I can talk to Isambard Kingdom Brunel for a day. I know it's technically a dodge, but I'm sorry you're giving me a chance to get close to and talk to one of the greatest engineers ever. Like, I'm taking that.
Have I told you some of the deep lore about Herd? As in me. One of my middle names was very nearly Isambard.
Nice. Deep Hood lore.
The main reason it wasn't chosen was because my mother can't spell. So she decided to say she vetoed that because she couldn't spell it reliably.
We were so close.
Okay, so I've got a much sadder one because I feel like I want to be sad currently.
Aw, don't be sad.
And that is at some point in the late 50s, early 60s on HMS Vanguard's Last Royal Cruise. Or in the 60s, which has been broken up. And it's just seeing not even the twilight, just the end of the Empire. Which is kind of what Vanguard signified and does signify.
She does, to be fair, yeah.
I'm of two minds when it comes to it. Sorry, you were speaking. My bad.
Like, just because, I mean, as a naval geek and a fan of battle cruises, it would be sad, but it's also just like that ship should have got a proper send off, you know?
Yeah. There we go. So, leading into mine to follow up that I want to speak to either Cunningham or Walker before World War II. I'm of two minds. I either want to go back to, call it 1805. No, not 1805. I want to go back to like 1798 or something, when Horatio Nelson is doing his political stuff, and scream at him about, plantation work is not the best way for the Caribbean to make money. Even if at that time the modern concept of tourism, the way that we understand it, doesn't exist. Despite the fact that tourism as an industry has existed since the Roman era, in fact, pre-Roman Empire era. But that's neither here nor there. Because I also do want to go back and speak to Cunningham pre-war, just about ships and carriers.
And now we've got the big one.
That way I can also speak to Churchill, who can shove me off to speaking to Bernard Montgomery, who I can then speak to his wife, who is the sister of one of my personal heroes and one of the greatest engineers of the war. What was his rank?
I'm not sure.
The guy whose sister Bernie married. whatever general, Percy Hobart.
Oh, the funnies fellow.
The funniest fellow, the guy who in 16 basically foresaw 1960s Cold War era battle tanks. In 1916, bro was ahead of his fucking time and got bullied out of the army for it. The only reason he came back was because Churchill himself wrote him letters and went to visit him, saying, "I need you to come back. I need your engineering genius." And Hobart's response was, "Am I coming back as I think he was at that time a captain in the Home Guard, or a general officer of His Majesty's Army." And Churchill literally moved fucking mountains and told various general staff members of the War College to fuck off, just to get him back in standard uniform as a staff officer in general. Because not having Hobart was going to be bad, and a lot of the things that he did basically set the stage for modern tank warfare.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not joking. He was fucking ahead of his time, and he's a personal hero of mine for it.
Naturally.
I mean, one of the things he does I don't get a lot of credit for is pioneering attempts to get NBC protection in tanks. It wasn't designed for nuclear weapons, but it was designed for the assumption that chemical weapons. Yeah, it was initially designed for countering what would at that time be more advanced gas attacks, which were never really used in against army forces. They were mostly used against civilians. But yeah, he pioneered a lot of that. He pioneered what we would understand as modern minesweeping on the battlefield, modern mine laying, amphibious warfare. A lot of that was just down to him having a ponder for an afternoon and drawing something. The funnies came to be. He just thought about it for a minute and started drawing.
And thus were some of the most awesome war machines ever created brought into existence.
Very cool.
Anyone else?
I have two answers. One funny and one strong serious. Okay, so the serious answer is that I would like to travel to talk with the Dreadnought man himself. Because who doesn't want to talk to fucking Jackie Fisher?
True.
And the funny answer is that I will travel to the 25th of June, 1667, to laugh at the Duke of Cumberland and George Monk.
Oh dear.
Because that's just after the raid on the Medway.
Oh dear.
Mine's quite easy. I'm going back to about the, I think it's roughly the 4th of January, 1917. I'm going to have a conversation with Jellicoe, and I'm going to have a conversation with the War Cabinet. And I'm going to explain them that those 3 Admiral-class battlecruisers, that they are deciding whether to pause or not pause at the moment because of the lessons coming out of Jutland are suddenly making them reconsider it. Will be perfect hulls for turning into aircraft carriers.
Oh, good.
And my reckoning is if I get that done in January 1917 and I get those designs put through, A, I can get deck edge lifts, and B, considering the state of progress that it will be on them at that point, most of them are about 3 to 4 months into build, I can get 3 absolutely kick-ass battle cruisers in service long before aircraft carriers in service long before any treaty system comes into place, and Lord help the world. And also, with 3 aircraft carriers that big in the Royal Navy service, there is no way later on Admiral Beatty is going to go, you know what, I will hand over the Fleet Air Arm to the Royal Air Force. No, because at least the carriers will stay on, carrier part will stay under, probably under that circumstance, you end up with the carriers being, the Fleet Air Arm, the aircraft carriers being Royal Navy, and the Coastal Command being a joint branch, which could actually ease their issues because they're dual funded. But then the Navy would put money into them. If the Navy's able to coordinate with them and work with them, they'll fund them.
I dare say with carriers that large and funding that diverse, you might see a very weird ghetto version of Royal Navy Kido Butai.
Well, the Royal Navy
not exactly the same, but you'd have bigger carriers to base all of your early lessons on that aren't, the spurious classes.
Okay.
Or battleship conversions.
Oh, right. The Royal Navy were starting multi-carrier operations in 1925.
No, I know, but if you look at how the Kido Butai was formally arranged for war fighting, and the way that we ended up splitting up a lot of our carriers before we started getting things like the Illustrious in service more readily available.
The reason for that was because the British had so many different theatres to be in, and they only had so many carriers. That was the problem. The British doctrine, pre-war doctrine, was always multi-carrier operations. That was one of the reasons why they could afford to be the size they were. That was the whole thing. It was supposed to be multi-carrier operations. That was what the British were aiming for. That's why you have something like Unicorn. Unicorn's supposed to be supporting a task force of 4 carriers. That's what you're building her around. You have a strike carrier sitting further back that can come forward when you need it. For strike operations, you have fleet carriers up with the fleet. You have scouting carriers up forward. You have multiple carriers of any task group. The problem for the Royal Navy is when you're fighting in the Mediterranean and you lose 2 carriers at the beginning of the war. You lose Glorious and Courageous very quickly early on in the war. And so you go from, in Norway, they have multi-carrier operations, where most operations involving carriers are 2-3 carriers, to then after that, they're doing single carrier operations.
Yeah.
Because they've lost the hulls. So it's not. It's a case of it's not a case of if they had those ships and they lost them, they'd still be forced to make the same decision. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's not that they wouldn't do it. It's like Taranto was originally supposed to be planned with Eagle, and even with her along, that would have been 42 Swordfish, and the Royal Navy was worried that wouldn't be enough. And they were trying to work out, could they get another carrier there in time? Could they change the plan with Ark Royal and have her dash through and all sorts of things? They were trying to work this out. And then it just dropped down lower because Eagle wasn't ready. So, yeah, it would have. It's a case of if they have them, it's just going to be more of what they did historically. The main thing you might get is with the British persistence and aim for long-range strike, especially long-range night strike. With aircraft carriers that size, they might try to go for twin-engined aircraft. And that would be an interesting thing. But it's a case of there's a lot of what I was written about the Royal Navy in terms of aircraft carriers. And I found this out when doing my PhD. A lot of it is based on the assumption that they ended up fighting in World War II, how they planned to fight in the 1920s and 30s. And they really didn't. And there are lots of decisions which forced that through. The pausing of the carrier construction, for starters, would have had an impact on that, because if you hadn't paused the Illustrious classes, they wouldn't have been quite available in time to make good immediately the losses of Glorious and Courageous, but they would have been available quickly enough that you would probably have seen at least 2 armoured carriers in the Mediterranean along with Eagle. And that would probably mean Eagle would actually not have been damaged. When she was damaged, she would have been repaired earlier on rather than kept going, because they really needed to have 2 carriers available. If you have 3 carriers, you can cut one down and send it off to get maintained. If you only have 2, you keep both going. And that would have probably meant you would have had a 3 carrier strike on Taranto. And let's be honest, they do enough damage with 21 Swordfish in the end that hit it. A scenario where you have, I don't know, it would be 66 Swordfish. Well, that's going to be a very different scenario. 5 out of 11 torpedoes launched hit, so let's say you'd end up with probably about 36 of the aircraft carrying torpedoes, so let's say about 15 get hits. That's going to be a very different scenario. But that doesn't happen. That's not the war the Royal Navy gets to fight. It would be interesting, though. Now, the main thing I think with those large carriers that they would impact would actually be it would just keep. It would allow the Fleet Air Arm to develop its aircraft properly. So by World War II, you wouldn't have. As much as I love the Swordfish, you wouldn't have the Swordfish. If the Fleet Air Arm is not in a scenario where the Navy talks to the Navy people who are in charge, looking at the operations side, are talking to the Admiralty. The Admiralty is talking to the Air Ministry. The Air Ministry are talking to the companies who are then talking to the engineers, and then it goes backwards and forwards when it comes to aircraft development. I think you end up with better aircraft development because if you reduce the layers, you cannot help but improve the flow of the efficiency and the flow of information. Because some of the times you sit there and go, why are the Royal Navy not ordering this? Why is this not part of their procurement? And it's quite simply because they don't know it's possible. Because it hasn't got through those layers.
Right. Jolly good.
The RAF being the RAF.
So
not really. It's the Air Ministry being the Air Ministry. I always try and point it out. It's not the Air Ministry starved the rest of the RAF for stuff in the 1930s. You know, you look at Poor Fighter Command. Look at Coastal Command. Look at all these things. Look at how they're starved. And it's not the RAF is anti the RSOs. There's a faction of the RAF which has managed to get control of the Air Ministry, and they are anti everything but themselves because they don't believe it's a viable weapon of war.
Yeah, but it's still, even then the RAF was very territorial when it came to its stuff.
Yeah,
I think what my initial point was meant to be, but I failed to get it across, was that having those those 3 extra large hulls of carrier would enable the Royal Navy to better perform those multi-carrier operations because they have 4 large fleet carriers from the get-go of a ubiquitous class, able to support those larger air wings and air assaults.
Oh,
not specifically an argument against your point, more or less an extra layer of backing to it.
Well, that's the thing. If you think about it, Ark Royal, Glorious, and Courageous could all carry roughly 60 modern strike aircraft at that point.
Yeah.
In 1939. So whilst, yes, the 3 admirals would have been able to carry more, there is, of course, the possibility that if you have those 3 admirals, that changes the treaty system completely. Because in the treaty system, if the Royal Navy's got 3 carriers, which are roughly 40,000 tons each, does anyone here think the Royal Navy the British government are accepting 135,000 tons as a limitation of carrier construction? Because why would you? If you've got 120,000 tons in free ships, and you've also got, let's say, Hermes under construction, probably, you might not do the Eagle conversion. You might not do Courageous and Glorious as well in this scenario. You've probably still got Furious wandering around. But, you know, you've got roughly 150,000 tons worth of carrier at least. 160,000 tons worth of carrier. You're not going to accept a treaty limit which puts you that small. And the Americans probably aren't going to accept it either. So the interesting thing becomes, how big did the Lexington class end up, and what did the Americans do with their 3rd Lexington? Because that's going to be the class they're going to convert into their admiral equivalents.
I do feel like we are really beginning to
a bit off topic.
Me
more than just
and Hood are having fun with this one.
Yes,
I'm enjoying this.
But I don't mind a good tangent, but
It was a question about what day would you head to see the Royal Navy.
Yes, because, we are
Me and Hood are having fun.
You are, but we have other questions. Alex, we have other questions to get to. It's not a misjudgment of the quality of the conversation. We just have things to get to. Steve,
Alex and I will just have to hash this out on the next ship shape.
I'm gonna have to. Steve, first of all, this is my show, and I have to keep it moving. Secondly, please don't ping me, as I've said before numerous times, unless there's something I need to deal with in regards to moderation / problems in the chat. Right, moving on. Douglas Yoiti asks, Part 1. It's 1965. Mariner 4 sends back photos of the Mars surface containing rivers and lakes, and then it also has the conditions to support life.
Yeah, Fleet, I've pinged him in the YouTube chat. He has not responded.
Yes,
I have no idea where he's going.
Yeah, I've been looking for the rest of it as well. So we will continue on that premise.
It's not in the queue. Where does it go?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I've also looked in the general YouTube chat as well. So we will have to continue with the question on the premises provided. And even then, that's still a lightning bolt. Because at that point, the race for Mars is on. Like, if it can support life... Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but... if Mars is a planet with a...
And in 1965...
Yeah. Like the moon will come first, but the moon will only be seen as a stepping stone.
Right. We need to make a decision. Are we talking that Mars is a green world, or that Mars can support life? So, does it currently support life?
Well, so the idea that it has rivers and lakes, the next logic and contains the conditions to support and has the conditions to support life would, by extension, imply that there is greenery of some kind.
Yes, that was the assumption I was working on as well.
Because what I'm saying is, are we assuming that there's microbial early multicellular, or are we talking Earth-like?
I think proto-Earth-like.
Because that's going to massively change the reaction.
He's updated it. Hang on.
Has he? Oh, hang on. We have information.
Where?
Oh! Venera 4 data reveals that Venus also has the conditions to support life. How the discovery of Mars and Venus being habitable changed the space race and space programs. It's that old chestnut. It's a variation of the idea that was popular in the late 19th century, that the various planets of the solar system were reflections of Earth at various evolutionary stages.
Venus is.
No, but as in Venus was supposed to be dinosaurial for some reason I don't quite understand.
Oh, we're talking. Okay, we're talking.
I'm not saying it is
Chevalier saying that like we've got the coronation of a Venusian emperor type stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is exactly what this question is, but it seems to be a variation on that. So habitable planets with full greenery. Which at that point...
All I will say is by 2025, in this scenario, I will be Emperor of Mars, and you will be bowing to my mighty space.
But it still depends. Like, especially for Mars, are we talking Mars is really early life, or is Mars...
Sorry, I just had a case of mental whiplash at one of gunnery officer's questions. I need to post a GIF in chat so we can get back to this.
I am not familiar with this scenario.
According to the... basically, this is the same... This whole concept was something that H.G. Wells spun off for... War of the Worlds. And basically, in this concept, Mars is still a habitable world, but it is dying. It is in the last phases of its death as a habitable planet.
I will also point out that up until Mariner 4 actually sends back those pictures, general understanding of the habitability of other bodies in the solar system was that Mars was in some way inhabited, as in by actual Martians. That's one of the reasons that the idea of Martian
canals.
It's the Martian canals, because someone strained their telescope apertures so wide that they were seeing reflections of the veins and capillaries of their own eyeball reflected back in the telescope. Which is cool, but also people were immensely disappointed the world over when the first images of Mars came back and it was a barren, lifeless rock.
Whereas in this case, everyone's going to go with, he was right!
Yeah. When it comes to this, however, the way that it changes the space race, you would probably see much in the way that, like, in the modern day, according to most, like, stellar powers, we'll call them, namely the USSR, tangentially, and America. By and large, the USSR effectively wrote off the moon as American soil, provided that in the same vein, according to America, they wrote off Venus as Soviet soil, because the Soviets sent more probes to Venus than America did, and vice versa. America sent more probes to Luna than the USSR did.
Yeah.
When it came to Mars, that was a next step in the space race, because Mars was just over there. Mars was, at that point, also viewed as somewhat less so than Venus, as Earth's twin. So you would see a reheated space race in trying to be the first one to put boots on the ground and set up colonies on Mars. Whether that would be independent or joint ventures, either with the entirety of NATO or with a multinational, multipolar expeditionary force or expeditionary venture, you would depend on the particular things of the day. 1965, this is just after the Kennedy speech. This is just after Kennedy's assassination.
Which basically, like, the fire has been set in the heart of NASA. And this is only going to reignite it.
At this point, NASA is almost currently riding their highest in terms of funding.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
So you're telling me... and basically the goal at that point becomes, we're not going to the moon just to go to the moon. It's a stepping stone.
This is where we get the stepping stone for interplanetary colonization efforts.
Isn't this just all mankind now?
Yes, basically.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The thing is, you would have... I think in this scenario, the thing is, you have to remember, if you have this looking like viable acquisition of economic resources in this period, you'd have a lot more than just the space race as it was.
The ESA.
You'd have a lot more groups interested in it.
Like, the ESA is going to go absolutely nuts.
The European Space Agency might actually have some funding.
Yeah.
The British
it's not
Space
even that
Agency
as well.
might
We'd
actually
see private interest firms start cropping up as well.
As
soon as like Luna is established as the gateway to the rest of the solar system, because fun fact, gravity is quite weak on the moon, so it's real fucking easy to launch from the moon compared to Earth. We'd still have to get shit manufactured or parts manufactured from Earth to the moon for easy assembly and then launch. But even still, that's like 2 or 3 different industries collaborating together for one end goal of the moon, and then other industries collaborating there for the end goal of the rest of the solar system, almost.
You basically the moon becomes Lunarport 1.
Yeah, like this is the thing.
I've just got a scarier thought. Is anyone here familiar with Cyberpunk?
Vaguely.
Yes. Oh boy.
And how, since they've got a lot better access to space, they have stuff like orbital weaponry. Because the space race never ended in the Cyberpunk timeline.
Yeah, there probably will be militarization of space owing to the way in which it's...
Hold on.
Yeah.
Are you forgetting who it is who has the majority of the interest in space? Because funnily enough, it's the ESA. The ESA is the single largest multinational stellar capable power.
Oh no, Ruinon, Ruinon, the whole economic side of it is not mining the minerals at all. It's the science data and the selling of colonization contracts to people. That's the economic side of it. It's not like the minerals you mine are for use on the colonies to help make them self-sufficient.
Fleet, if you can travel to Mars, you have asteroid mining.
Yes.
Yeah,
if you have asteroid mining and minerals become the big thing.
You then have a space economy, and suddenly you're a dwarf. Because let's be honest, if you're a country the size of the UK in the 1960s, if you can get hold of an asteroid, that's your entire debt paid off. If you're mining successfully from an asteroid.
You could lift materials from Mars or Venus. It'd be stupidly expensive, but you could do it. But no, asteroid mining is better, as Dr. Clark and Fox have said. But The funny thing about this,
which actually means that honestly, Mars doesn't become as important as the Martian moons.
No. Like, Mars is seen as the prestige crown of the Martian system, but the moons are where all the industry and mining is. It's beating the economic heart.
No, what's the ice moon Jupiter has that's got enough water on it?
Titan.
No,
the
it's
big ones
Europa.
are Titan and Uranus.
No, that's Europa. Europa is what you're thinking.
Right.
So funnily enough, there is Europa and Enceladus.
In what?
The latter one is the more important one.
You will probably see Orion drive ships because it is a very efficient way to move shit when you're in space.
Ion drive is going to be where it's at because it's relatively low drag, it's high speed, it's easy maintenance.
Yeah,
it's something that we can easily assemble in space and use in space without having to worry about landing.
Ruinon, I understand what you're saying, and this is true, but there was no economic reason to go to the moon, either. And the US did it anyway. The Cold War will drive the prestige of both the USSR, the ESA, possibly even the UK, and the Americans. And also...
But there's a reason the Americans didn't colonize the moon. They went there, they didn't colonize it.
Honestly, Steve, mass drivers are useful, but the Orion is just so simple to get working, and it offers acceleration that even thermal nuclear rockets can't even hope to match. Well, mass drivers are good for moving certain things. If you want a ship that can maneuver, Orion's basically your choice.
Oh god. I just... Do we have orbital railguns?
Ruinon, I think you're being overly pessimistic.
I think you're being overly optimistic.
I mean, these are colonizable planets. They don't require any special kit to live on.
Well, okay.
In relation to the question, yesn't, Fleet.
What do you mean, yesn't?
How? Okay, so here's the thing about something that lives on another planet. It's had no exposure to humanity. We've had no exposure to it. We do not know until we bend down and take a bite whether something is edible by humanity or not. One of the things that I chiefly love about the Honorverse is how David Weber tends to just waffle for a time about how X thing exists for whatever reason. The planet Cerberus, one of the main and secret prison facilities of the SS, of StateSec for the People's Republic of Haven, has a partially digestible food source native to the planet. It's a bit like a mix between a potato and a carrot.
Right.
In that it's a root vegetable, but you kind of need something else to help it better be digested by humanity, and you still need the food ration packs that are pretty standard for prison rations. It takes something else to help us digest something entirely alien. Look at how foodstuffs that were completely alien to certain parts of our own planet had to be supplemented by original stuff we import from the homeland. We'd have to import terrestrial foodstuffs from Earth to Mars, to Venus, to Enceladus, to wherever else in the solar system, until we could effectively crossbreed those crops with local ones that could easily grow in the soil. Because even then, we don't know how well terrestrial or Terran food crops are actually going to grow on another planet until we try it. And even then, until the first half dozen harvests of a cycle are able to be brought in and provide a reliable chain of food locally, those worlds and those colonies will still be entirely dependent on Earth and her own exports for food, for water, potentially, for fuel, potentially for a time. All sorts of things will have to be reliant on effectively an uninterrupted supply chain from the mother world. And that's not really going to stop until you actually... No, you don't.
Okay.
So mass drivers are good at getting things from one place to another relatively quickly. For something like Mars or potentially Venus, you'd need something that maneuvers, not something that is just you fire it off in a direction waiting for it to get there, because you're going to have to do a lot of tuning to make that work properly.
Even the Aldrin system, which you've suggested, is still slower than a Orion-driven spacecraft.
So
yes, but it doesn't use rare metals as fuel.
No.
question, or well, statement. Now that I have been freed from the wage cage and may look like a deranged lunatic on the way back to my car. Kennedy's dead at this point, 65. So you'll still get to the moon because Kennedy was such a unifying figure, plus or minus some Catholicism, that essentially, yeah, like you said earlier, and I apologize if I'm going to tread something. I was walking past the turbine plant, which makes it very difficult. You're still going to get to the moon. You'll probably start building the infrastructure of the Mars, and then Nixon will get elected, or Ford will come into power. Get the presidency, and then you're going to start seeing budget cuts, and there's not going to be any commercial impetus to start this process. It's going to be an ego trip. And we kind of abandoned the moon after Apollo 15?
So Ronan also has the issue of the planets themselves were not a new territory. They weren't new virgin territory for us to explore and to expand into. In this particular timeline, they are. We're not just going to stop because of shitty presidents getting in, because that's not going to stop everyone else. And America will not want to be second place in that race.
And I'd also say in this scenario, you have to remember the Americans kept moving the goal so they could win the space race. In this scenario, the goal is never the moon. The goal is always the planets. The goal is the asteroids. So a nice way of getting to the moon is not going to be winning victory declared. Those presidents are going to see that, well, hang on, we've got to the moon under Kennedy, but under me, we can get to Mars itself.
I mean,
you have a more optimistic opinion about Congress's willingness to cut checks than I do.
No, I have worked with enough politicians to know the hunting of a legacy and glory becomes very, 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 very persuasive.
It's a very loud call, and it's more a case of when it comes to like a lot of that. I do 100% agree and understand, but at the same time.
I once had the pleasure of listening to, and this is a fun story I can relate. I once had the pleasure of listening to an hour-long rant from a U.S. senator who is still sitting as a senator.
That doesn't surprise anyone. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
He's being vague for the reason.
Yeah, who was spent a whole hour ranting about Charlie Wilson having, thanks to that movie, having this legacy he didn't deserve.
But I had to make a crack about the geriatrics of my country.
Yes, I know. But in the nicest way, Charlie Wilson was long gone from the Senate long before this person got anywhere near the Senate.
Yeah.
But they spent an entire hour ranting about the fact that Charlie Wilson now has this legacy thanks to a movie which doesn't even understand his place and his role. An entire hour. And I would love to say this in a nice way. The group in that room was not exactly small.
Yeah.
That was their entire speech for an entire hour.
Yeah.
So politicians hunting legacy and glory. Sorry, they'll find the money.
Yeah, and I would also point out there's an extra bonus mission for the USSR here, which is it's a chance to prove communism without any external factors can work. Honestly. We'll found a commune on Venus. It'll be fine. Completely cure communism. I am, of course, joking, but still.
The Cosmophos is going to say that, and then they're going to take one look at the economics and go, we're in Afghanistan. The economy's collapsing. We're relying on petroleum exports.
You say that, Foxo, and look at some of the leaders the Soviet Union at the time. There will be people absolutely trying that and doing it on their own initiative, and they will be channeling their own funding into making that happen purely as a way to be like, when this does happen, I'm going to become the fucking general party secretary. It will fail, but it will eventually happen.
Again, I think you're forgetting they are a raw materials export economy. For them, getting to asteroid mining could be the thing which saves their economy.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I think the biggest long-term impact of this is going to be the development of the base infrastructure you need to do asteroid recovery and exploitation.
Oh yeah, and that will
I think in the nicest way, until we get to a crowded Earth scenario, I think Venus and Mars are in many ways going to be afterthoughts in the macro view after about 5-10 years.
Yeah, they're going to be prestige pieces, but nothing more.
No. We've got two scenarios. Either we get there, then we decide it's way too much effort, like how a lot of pre-Columbian societies that went to America saw the Americans. Whereas we can get here. Why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
Or you might see very limited colonization, because we still do not have the knowledge of physics to make getting to other planets easy. Like,
yep.
a longer space race won't fix gravity and scalability.
Yes, Steve, it is a land grab with no opposition, but I will also point out that.
And are we assuming no opposition?
But I would also.
In nicest way, we all know it would actually achieve finally what Wikipedia's been asking old British people to do for many years, because as Wikipedia says on the British Empire page, you can help by expanding this list.
But all jokes
aside, I love
aside,
that meme, but I hate that meme.
Despite everything, as Foxo says, it is still a. You will probably see at any colonies that appear.
And I will be the Emperor of Mars.
Yeah, any colonies that appear will be at first prestige pieces, and then sectors and then places to control and administer the various mining operations the powers are conducting. As it's far easier.
No. Why would they mine?
No.
If you have the tech to get to Mars.
Foxo, you didn't. Foxo, you didn't. You completely misunderstood. I said control and administer the mining operations. The communication delay in terms of light seconds is far less from a base on Mars to the asteroid belt than it is from a base on Earth. It is far easier to coordinate and manage, if that is what they decide to do, those operations from Mars bases than it is to do so from Earth.
They won't. In my opinion, you're not going to see a Martian administrative presence. They're just going to put up stations because it's going to be cheaper to put up stations.
And it's like for real-time communications, the delay's an issue. But if they're not doing real-time communications, you can administrate it from the moon quite easily, or just satellites in orbit.
Yeah. What would be an interesting thing to see, though, is your
but like I did say, that
minimal emissions. Sorry, Fleet, but your minimal emissions power generation. So things like photovoltaic and possibly wind and possibly nuclear. Those technologies are going to see much more advancement much earlier, which would make the energy picture here on Earth interesting. Because remember, too, you're going to be because you're making more bombs if you do an Orion drive system, which I think they'll do.
Yeah. Like Steve,
you're going to have increased. What's up with Steve now?
He's basically dug his heels in and is defending. Honestly, it's not a bad position that the Orion drive is just not going to be what they go for. They're going to use the Aldrin system of ships basically on trajectories.
No, hold on. The best that the communications delay between Earth and Mars is 3 minutes. The worst is 23, 24.
Yes, he has got it.
Give or take.
I think you'll see both.
We know this because at the current time, our best technologies to do that are used for the current Curiosity and Endeavour Mars rovers.
Yeah.
And
But
at our
if I can
closest,
finish,
it is a 3.5 minute delay. At its longest, it is a 22-minute delay because it has to arc round.
Go on, Ruinon.
Yeah, and the ship
Hang on. Ruinon needs
Hold
to
on,
finish.
Ruinon is trying to finish.
Because you're going to have a lot of federal or national government investment in these programs, which means the infrastructure is going to be built up, which means for terrestrial deployment, it's going to be a lot cheaper because you're building so much more of it, and the people who know how to handle these things are going to be more common because there's going to be a heavier infrastructure. I see the talking stick.
That'd be a fun thing to get for this for ramblings. Everyone a talking stick, so we go round.
I wish to high heaven that Discord had a talking stick function. Make my job so much easier.
Yeah. What I would like to just very quickly say is I think a compromise is probably what you're going to see. I think for general purpose, reliable transfer, I think the Aldrin... I've been looking into the Aldrin system because I hadn't actually heard of it until Steve mentioned it. It's a fairly simple and non-complicated, once you've set it up, way to actually move people around. But in terms of... The problem is, though, it's very limited in its ability to maneuver and change its orbit once you have set it up. So I think you'll have... Think of it this way. The Aldrin system craft are probably like your slower merchantmen. Carrying things you need to move relatively cheaply around the solar system. With their... Since obviously they basically require very little propellant to keep going after the immediate setup cost. But I think in terms of ships that need to maneuver... So, AKA, and for things you need to transit much faster, where efficiency isn't a concern as much, Orion is basically your best bet. Although there may also be a niche in the lifting from Earth, you might see big dumb boosters appear. So things like Sea Dragon and a possible Soviet equivalent to Sea Dragon.
I don't think you see Orion drives.
Mass drivers.
A, mass drivers, and B, you probably won't see Orion drives beyond early stages.
Orion drives are really quick, though, to move things around.
Remember, a lot of materials to make anything nuclear, even in the solar system, is accessible, are very limited.
Mm.
And you're burning a very, very limited resource.
That is true.
And a very expensive resource and fuel to make.
Yeah.
Because you need
a
very
one-off
high
is fine,
enrichment.
but we're talking about regular trips. You're going to need a more energy-efficient system. And
I mean,
you can't really beat mass driver in terms of energy efficiency.
Mass drivers, you can't... Yeah, but you can't maneuver a mass driver. You can only launch things from it. You can't really do any maneuvering with it.
You're trying to get...
You don't need to.
You're just trying to get out of the atmosphere.
Well, that's fine.
Okay, on the uranium in space thing, the fuel in space, uranium in space sort of scenario, there is uranium on the moon. There is also, it's quite common in asteroids as a byproduct. It's kind of like in the UK, it's sort of like systems where, if you consider in Cornwall, when we are mining for certain things in Cornwall, you usually find uranium near them or part of them. So you take up, so that's what you're gonna. It's going to be more about. It's not so much the amount of the resource you have; it's the refining to get that resource out. Yes. But if you're already going to be doing the refining on the scale to make proper use of those materials to get out the things you want from that stuff, you probably go after the uranium as well because you can.
Yeah, But it's a difference between uranium's common, but the isotopes needed to make new nuclear weapons of uranium are not. And lithium
but to make uranium fuel
common in space. I think if I'm back, the Orion drive still uses essentially nuclear grade material, like nuclear weapons grade material, which is hard to produce.
It's chucking a fusion bomb out its backside to go places.
The issue isn't
the particular description of it is a nuclear pulse that would be directly propelled by a series of nuclear explosions behind the craft, and then riding out the shock of that explosion.
So even if you can find uranium in space, you've still got to enrich it. It's got to be high enough quality ore, and it's very rare to get easy access, good enough quality stuff.
On the whole subject of lithium and uranium in space, this is where, in nicest way, I'm going to possibly make Hood. Is probably going to be jumping up and down, doing a "I told you so" jump, because the best source for it in the area is probably Enceladus, followed by Europa. Jupiter's moon in Europa, Saturn's moon Enceladus, with their subsurface oceans, have probably the best quality lithium similar to Earth.
So the projected ideas for things like that is 2080s, 2090s, where by the time we actually have the ability to get to it, because the issue of both Europa and Enceladus is the subsurface oceans. And we know for a fact that the crust of Europa is between 10 and 50 kilometers thick.
Mm-hmm.
There is no current drilling system yet devised by mankind, short of just, spending a couple of decades drilling in sequence, capable of getting there. We require a far more efficient and capable drilling system to get to the shallowest portion of Europa's ocean, and even then, we also need the infrastructure there to maintain sufficient flow from the surface to the subsurface ocean, as well as all the other industry required to be able to take on the resources that we do get from it. And even then, we'd have to range deeper still with submersibles, submarines, etc., to even get to the sub-ocean sea floor, which is where a lot of this lithium is likely to be stored. There may be deposits on the sea roof, on the ice, and there may be deposits within the ice field itself within the crust, but that's going to, again, require more drilling. Depending on where you do it, might be more cost effective to go into the subsurface ocean, because funnily enough, it's quicker to go from a point in the subsurface ocean to the equivalent point on the oversurface, because the distance is smaller because you're further down. Either way, lots of time, effort, and money is going to be required to get to that. What I would likely propose for outbound flights, say from Earth to Mars or from Venus to Earth and Mars, is solar sails. Yes, it's a current, closer to modern day than it is the 1960s, but given the rapid pace of technological advancement, purely to get some of this shit off the ground, you're likely to see a lot of these more outlandish ideas of what if we just use sails. Is probably going to be proposed earlier and see a lot of earlier research and development to try and make work, because fuck me, it's going to be economical.
What could be interesting is if you see the development of ground-based microwave laser boosted sails. Especially if you have a robust infrastructure on the moon.
That's one of the reasons that I and most of the panel have christened the moon as the gateway, because it's easier to launch shit from the moon because there's basically no atmosphere and the gravity is much lower. So even mass drivers have a tremendously better chance of propelling things from the moon to Mars or other points in the say the Lagrange points to then be boosted from there. That second stage boost is always likely going to require some kind of microwave-based laser, thank you, phone, or solar sails, or an Orion drive, or even modern day-esque nuclear propulsion systems that simply channel the outgassing, because that's kind of all you really need. Because, the reason that astronauts have to effectively fix themselves to a point in the space stations is because their breathing can move them into negative space between bulkheads and surfaces, basically stranding them there until they float by breathing within arm's reach of something to grasp onto. You don't need to do any bullshit with mass drivers to do multi thrust points in space, because you can just use the emissions from your fuel source as it burns. Imagine instead of using the steam train to power your rails, you just use the exhaust from the steam engine to propel yourself. This is as basic as we can make it, as basic as we need to make it for propulsion in space. Sure, the example of the steam engine is woefully inadequate on the scale that we'd require to make things like viable economically, but that's about as basic as I can dumb it down for people to at least understand how simple it can be to maneuver in space.
I do feel, folks, we
a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah. Well, no, we didn't get sidetracked, but we have really gone at this question. Oh, I'm going to say,
it's a very interesting question.
Yeah,
There were a few questions.
Yeah, I'm also just going to say, Ruinon, please check your DMs. I think the time has come, given we are now 40 minutes away from the end of Rambling, so that we need to do the usual thing that we do. Now that questions are closed.
Lee?
Oh, you're not home, are you?
If I'm talking to you, and I just walked out of work
I forgot about that
10
bit.
minutes ago.
Look, I'm not...
What do you think I'm doing, and why do you think
French.
my mic is so shitty?
Look.
No, but Ronan, I thought you geriatrics worked at the nursing home. You know,
that's not fair to the
style.
guy. That's not fair. Come on.
Foxo, at some point, if Runon does manage to get her arthritic fingers around your neck, I will not be surprised.
Yeah.
As a fellow geriatric, I'll help.
I know my signal's now shit.
Now, if I
Excuse
wasn't on
me.
Fleet Stream, I would tell her harder, mummy. But we're on Fleet Stream.
Oh, you can't say because we're on thing and then not say the thing, but then say the thing. That's not how it works.
Why is there no quote channel here?
I just want to put it this way: if I had about $50 for every time Foxo has called me old by one way or another, I wouldn't have to worry about what I could or couldn't move to the UK.
Yeah, but then again, you're probably old enough to remember when $50 was a lot of money, aren't you?
$50 is still most of a box of Warhammer.
Like back in your day, you could get
Also-
a house for $50. Come on.
Also, I might be gay, but $50 is $50.
I see inflation's kicked in hard because it used to only be 20.
No, I know I'm worth
A
more
long
than
time
$20.
since it's been 20.
Oh, dearie me.
Fox is too cheap for my services, Foxo.
Anyway. So, I will deal with...
Yes, you're an empress, I'm an electrician. Of course there's going to be a price difference there.
Anyway, next question. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if each member of the panel had the ability to go to and from a personal Minecraft, and you could also bring things between the worlds? What antics would
Terraria.
everyone get up to?
Terraria.
Gold.
Yes.
I wish to become rich.
Gold.
Only little bits at a time, so as not to, A, have people asking too many questions, and B, overinflate the market, and obviously you declare that income as best you can.
No, Fleet. Why gold? Why not, diamonds?
Because there
No,
are...
because diamonds value
Actually-
is artificial.
That's
Yeah.
my point. You can
Actually, I have a
collapse the
better
diamond
idea.
market and become another stakeholder in the Luxembourgish cartel,
Yeah.
whilst also then giving them additional sources of mine diamonds that aren't, conflict diamonds, and taken from the hands of small children who are murdered.
But you're so unoriginal.
Also,
you're in Minecraft. You've got ender pearls. Like, teleport places. Become the SCP you were born to be.
I don't need ender
Okay.
pearls to do that.
sorry, I'm going to say this. I would like to find who taught the security guards at this ferry hand signals. And I'd like to just talk with them, possibly with Leslie present. Just want to have a talk. Maybe some Gurkhas, or maybe some command master sergeants. I don't know. But
Oh no! You want some fucking RSMs? You want some regimental sergeant majors because they do not fucking.
yeah,
about.
that works too. I just need angry enlisted that know how to do hand signals and aren't afraid to yell at people.
I mean,
Anyway,
okay, like honestly, if we're gonna do that, let's get a battery sergeant major. Let's get a sergeant major.
Can we not get sidetracked like this? Or
Yeah,
another
and I
question?
have my answer.
Anyway,
Because I am an American and I am currently facing a 50% tariff on foreign sourced copper and an electrician, so I know how copper scrapping works. I'm going to bring copper. A lot of copper.
Is copper even in Minecraft?
A concerted
Yes.
amount of
Yes.
copper.
Yes.
This way, it's less traced than gold. And therefore easier to move. And therefore raises fewer flags with the IRS, so long as I continue to report the income.
I would also like to maintain that this is also just this is you having a single character on Terraria because you can do that with Terraria better than Minecraft, and there's more materials.
Yeah, but you can carry what? Something like 340 Eiffel Towers in your back pocket or something? Ridiculous like that?
I mean, yeah, that makes it better. What do you mean? I could carry what is it? Is it 10 by 5? I could carry at least 50 stacks of 999 things of, platinum coins, which are worth 100 gold coins.
So I've just got a quick question.
So-
How would Minecraft mobs work?
That's
Mobs.
Like, could I put a zombie in a minecart and then bring it to our world?
That's a bad idea.
You've just given the new version of what is it? W.S. Sanderson Resident Evil movies. You've just made a new entry into that movie. What do you mean?
Because what I would do is I'd get a zombie in a minecart, take it to Paris, or enter Minecraft while I'm in France, and then destroy France.
So you're thinking small there, Foxo. You just pick someone and capture the Ender Dragon.
Unfortunately, Ender Dragon can't get into minecarts.
No. But if we're dispensing with this rule bullshit, again, you could just capture the Ender Dragon. Bring the egg.
Oh god. Yeah, you can break the egg.
Bring the Lunar War shit. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, look, anyway, moving on.
So
Alan Shepard, my
actually,
beloved.
just
Nemesis,
bring like
my
a
beloved.
pig. Just bring like a gepard to shoot down the Ender Dragon.
I have come here to shoot you down. You cannot resist.
Moving on.
Yes, next question.
YouTube
Minecraft
Minecraft
Watcher.
Watcher. What if John Jervis, Earl of St. Vincent, suddenly appeared today? I'd offer him an iron brew.
Yeah. Sit him down and have a long conversation explaining him how the world has changed, and then leave him alone in the House of Commons for a few hours.
Run an impromptu episode.
Could you imagine how many fucking MPs would resign?
Can you imagine how
They would
many
have the
never get the
opportunity to
chance
resign?
resign? It'll be a interesting time, but it'll be a special time.
Alrighty.
Next
In the absence of
question
noises
is-
from, oh, there's the fleet shape noises.
Yes. Brandon Larson, what's the panel's favorite attack helicopter and transport utility helicopter, respectively? Attack helicopter, I have a very, 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 very soft spot.
Links.
Um,
So let fleet finish.
So, I'm sorry to say this, but the ugly, horrific monstrosity that is the Hind is my... Honestly, it's my favorite attack helicopter. It is iconic, and I do love just the ugly, brutal utility of it. In terms of utility transport helicopters, I'm probably gonna go with the what's it called? Come on, fleet. Think about it. Hang on, just a minute.
The Huey.
Stop it.
Hold on. I'm gonna
Stop it.
start naming helicopters off the top of my head if you
No,
can't think of it.
stop it. Please, thank you. I'm trying to...
Komachi?
No, it was the British...
Because that's the only correct answer.
It was the
Comanche's
British...
horrible. Fuck off.
No, it was the British twin...
Merlin?
No, it was the British twin rotor heavy lift helicopter they built.
Sea King.
No, that's not
That's a
twin
single
rotor.
lit rotor.
That's
The
not...
ferry Rotodyne?
No, that's also a single rotor. Oh, what was it?
You have actively stumbled.
The Belvedere.
That's the one, the Bristol Belvedere. That's the one.
Wasn't something made by Bristol?
Yeah, the Bristol Belvedere. It's absolutely...
Funnily enough, I believe they also went out of business shortly after the introduction and retirement of the fucking Belvedere.
And Knight Fleet is fleet. By definition, he is not okay.
I'm sorry, you unironically want something made by Bristol.
Also, Knight, there is nothing wrong with having the Mi-24 Hind as your favorite attack helicopter. It is a decent platform.
Helicopter is helicopter.
And also, bluntly, if you need to acquire only one helicopter, you can do worse than acquiring Hind. Hind can move things, it can carry troops, it can blow things up.
Yeah, but any transport helicopter can blow things up. Like
once.
No, you can fit rocket pods to most transport helicopters.
So
like the UN has the modules for the big one.
So
what's it called?
Yes.
My submissions are Chinook for the support cargo chopper and Apache Longbow for the attack.
No,
you're wrong.
Okay, I mean, I'll just say this again quickly because Leslie, you don't need to ping me. I'm reading chat, and I look for pings from Ramblings text for things going wrong. So just
yeah, ease up on the pings, guys.
I will say this, everyone. I know Fleet has a reputation from the past of not reading chat, but he has got better. Admittedly, he's possibly got better because as time goes on, Runon gets closer and closer to coming to UK, and she was threatening to do nasty things to him when she came to the UK if he wasn't reading chat. But he has got better at reading chat for whatever reason. It's good.
No,
you don't need to DM him directly for stuff.
Dr. Clark, the reason is not that Fleet's gotten better at reading chat. It's that we're on YouTube, where Fleet reads chat. Fleet doesn't read chat on Twitch. If we were on Twitch, we would have a problem, and the pings would be justified.
Okay. All right. I can see that to everyone. Okay, on Twitch, he's still bad. You can nag him all you want. You can DM him and nag him all you want when he's on Twitch. He's on YouTube today, though, so you're watching the chat. But, in fact, my suggestion is you nag him more often when he's on Twitch to get him into the habit of reading the Twitch chat because he gets so fed up with the DMs. That's my advice.
Good lord. Right, what's next?
I like the marine
I think
combo.
so. To round off this question, I will simply distribute mine in the same way that Ruinon likes the Apache. I also am a big fan of the Apache, particularly with Longbow Radar, because I've done some fun shit with that in Arma and other video games. Utility helicopter. I have a soft spot for the Merlin. I'm not gonna lie.
Merlin is pretty good.
But I also do like the Wildcat.
Yeah. My heresy honorable mention is Chinook is Osprey.
The Osprey is good. I'm also a fan of things like the Black Hawk because Black Hawk is fucking amazing as a platform. Kiowa before it. Kiowa was good as a multi-role light attack recon helicopter plus utility stuff. I'm a big fan of the Huey because of how many missions I've flown in armor purely flying a Huey for people in Mike Force and such. I'm also a fan of the Chinook for that same reason, because fucking Lamau having a Guns a Go-Go Chinook with rocket pods, 20mm cannons, minigun cannon pods, grenade launchers, it's a good meme. Sea Stallion's also a fucking amazing platform. I'm the K, the new one that's got 54,000 pounds of carrying capacity, of lift carrying capacity. Sorry, is fucking amazing. There's a lot of really good utility helicopters out there that you can also just arm as well. The Lynx and the follow-on Wildcat is excellent.
I have a preference for the Marine Vipers and Venoms.
Ooh, one of my first armor ops was flying as a gunner in one of the armed Venoms that we had as an escort for a Casavac Venom. That was fun times. We named ourselves Big Sky. Big Sky Down is not canon. That is a continuing meme. We did not get shot down twice. It didn't happen. Anyway.
Right. Okay. So next question is.
Lee, create a quotes channel on your server.
There is a quotes channel.
There is one.
Where?
Fleetisms and community quotes. It exists.
I repeat, where is that?
You should be able to see it. You are a sharpened trowel.
Everybody should be able to see that channel.
Don't see it.
Oh, it's because you didn't fucking. It's because you made it at a certain point in the service history, so I have to go to the channels and roles things and follow the category and follow the channel.
Ah, right. There you go.
Thank you, Discord. Very cool.
How do you get access to it?
So in the top of the server, or in the options for the server, if you're on mobile, because you're a cretin, there is a channels and roles tab.
Yes, the clearly labeled channels and roles.
You can go there. It starts you off in customize because Discord. There's some things I'll ignore for now. But then there's a browse channels tab, and you'll have to manually select the Fleetisms and Community Quotes channel to be viewable. I repeat, thank you, Discord. Very cool. I don't have permission to send messages in this channel.
No.
That's why.
Oh my god, I hate this. This is just thank you, Discord. Thank you, Discord. Very cool.
That's deliberate. Just send it to me and I'll submit it.
We should put Sharpened Trowel should be able to put stuff in there.
Should be. I don't know why, but I'm not, in the nicest way, not fucking with it right now.
We can fix this later. I already quoted Foxo in another channel. I'll just transfer that over.
It's all right. Okay, so next
anyway.
things.
And you got the quote wrong. It was on Fleet's YouTube, not Fleet Stream.
Ah.
I'll fix it later.
Oh, we have fun. We have fun.
Anyway.
Okay. Alrighty then. 1931 asks, so in a declined non-British Empire setting, would a swing wing or stealth bomber or both be what the British might consider as a non-declined empire will get stealth aircraft? Yes, I would expect both to be procured by a superpower British Federation / empire / whatever. Any state that needs to retain a full nuclear triad, including bombers, will need to make that move to supersonic and then stealth bombers. That's just not really negotiable if you want to retain bombers as a credible deterrent. Exactly what form they might take, it's hard to say.
So what type of bombers are you talking about? Because the British Army did have stuff like fighter bombers that could do a nuclear strike.
No, we're
We're
talking.
talking full-scale strategic nuclear
We're talking
bombers.
strategic, as in part of a potential triad, and in that case, then yes, you need equivalent to something like B1 and Tu-160, and then given...
Yeah, but up until modern day, you don't need stealth.
Well, no, you do need stealth in the bomber force for nuclear delivery and even just survivability from about the 1990s onwards. Depending on... For peer conflict, you absolutely do. For non-peer conflict or in a peer conflict as a missile carrier role, you're mostly fine with conventional bombers, whether supersonic or otherwise. But for deep penetration and nuclear strike in a peer role, you need stealth.
It's simple. You want to do first strike, you need stealth.
If you want to penetrate the enemy rear and not deliver things by a missile strike from in front, from your side of the lines, you need stealth.
Or you just...
No, there is no or. You need stealth.
There is an or.
What is the
You
or?
accept losses. That's your or.
You accept losses. And accepting losses is probably going to be way more accessible to any country that's not the US.
Well, in a setting that is
Because
the...
early, like, even for the Americans, early stealth was almost too expensive.
It was, but we're talking about a Britain, this whole non-declined British Empire, something we've discussed before, and we have accepted that it is a power with an equivalent level of funding availability to the US. And for a nation like that, with that nation's needs, stealth is within reach. Probably with something equivalent to an F-117 style platform, which is a bomber that is cosplaying as a fighter, and then moving to something like B-2.
No.
Did you just say that this... hang on, Foxa, before you give him a structurally superfluous new behind. Did you just say that this would be equivalent to the U.S.?
Yeah, the whole point of this non-declined British Empire is that it's
Okay.
a superpower.
No, Foxo, wait. I'm about to give him a new structurally superfluous
I just
behind.
want to give you the
Then you
context
can give him a...
for it. It's
a
basically,
structurally
imagine
superfluous-
if the Commonwealth actually became a federalized thing, is what I think this question's referencing.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the concept of a non-declined British
So
Empire.
we're going to start the queue. Tickets number 1, we have Runon. Number 2, we have Foxo. Number 3, we have Hood. So, go
Remember,
in that
Doc,
order.
I have higher moderation privileges on the server than you
Yes,
do.
but you
for
are
once.
currently you are contending. So therefore,
But
someone else
what I-
needed to sort it out. So you can go first, then Foxo, then Hood. Fleet, you might have multiple behinds by the end of this. Carry on.
If it's equivalent to the U.S.'s economic output, and early stealth was just at the edge of what the U.S. was willing to pay for, it's not going to be easier for a non-declined British Empire.
I didn't say it would be easier. I said it was something they would probably get. Never said it would be easy.
I heard easier, but I'm also on a ferry and paying attention to ferrying questions. So I could have been mistaken. I swear I heard easier.
It's
tagging in Foxo.
It's not right. Fleet stealth, especially stuff like the B2 project, didn't almost break the bank of the Americans. It did. Why do you think there's so few of them? Like, there is the reason America is the only country with capable stealth aircraft that aren't America based. Because it's, Jesus Christ, it was fucking expensive, and it is expensive as the Chinese are learning the hard way.
Yes, that is.
And unless you're in the very, very, very specific situation the Americans are in, where you need singular bombers to get through, you would do what most... You probably just go with cheaper, fast aircraft and just go soak the losses. Because we can have 3 or 4 of these bombers for the price on the low end for a stealth bomber. And a stealth strategic bomber is pretty much only a nuclear bomber, because of, especially in the 90s. Because those stealth aircraft very quickly stop being stealth aircraft when they're out of the hangar for extended sorties.
Yeah, it's probably part of why the U.S. built so many 52s.
I mean, I presume
Yeah.
Fleet's not talking about having an entire fleet of stealth strategic bombers.
No.
All
but-
right, Hood's
Hood-
next.
Sorry, go on, Hood. Oh, Hood's not here.
Yeah.
Whoops. Hood?
So I'll go next.
Okay. No, Hood is wanting to come up. Hood's got that
No,
hand
I think
raised.
that's more a case of they've been
What?
invited more than.
But
Yeah, Hood should have the ability
she's
to
back.
self-promote.
she's back.
And gone again.
Okay. But very quickly, my point is that stealth technology will likely be pursued by this state. What form it will take, what the outcomes will be, I'm not sure. I would like to think that a state with an equivalent nuclear triad to the US, which this state would likely have, would see a need
Why?
for a... because it's a global superpower facing off against the US and the Russians.
Why would it want a triad?
Because
Also, wait.
because a triad is the best way as a nuclear state to guarantee availability of deterrence and reliability of deterrence. It also vastly complicates your opponent's targeting solution, and it also opens up options for things like first strike, should you wish to.
The problem for a triad is it's the same problem you have it everywhere. And if you think about it, think about where the Americans and Russians base their triad, and then think about the British Empire and a federalized British Empire. Where would it base its triad?
You would have to have a dispersed launch site.
Well, let's put it this way: if you're putting your strategic bombers in Australia, are they much help to you to deal with America and Russia?
Well, you wouldn't base all of your...
Right, Fleet.
We literally
Who is-
discussed
like,
this
but
like,
who is
a couple of weeks
Who
ago.
is the target if you have even a couple of these bombers stationed in, say, Australia or New Zealand?
So right. Because the area you've got to cover, Fleet, you're not just going to have 1 to 2 squadrons, are you? You're going to need a fleet, because you're going to need 1 to 2 squadrons in every theatre.
Well, yes, that is true. But what
Which
I would
means you can't pull off what the Americans can do with a mass concentration of the infrastructure to maintain the B2s. You have to disperse it. You have to create duplicate infrastructure. You've skyrocketed the cost of the stealth program.
But not just that, though, even
I
the
would
extra
say
airframes skyrocketed.
I would say under this scenario, what you probably get with your triad would be in terms of how a federalized empire would approach it would be probably missiles based, a lot of fixed land-based missiles and sea-based missiles. And honestly, under that sort of scenario, whilst historically Britain does pursue a bit of a triad, please note, I could see in this scenario, rather than, whilst they would certainly have heavy bombers with a nuclear capability, the British would probably pursue a dispersed aircraft in nuclear capability for its triad. So rather than relying on bombers per se, they would have them on carriers for the aircraft on carriers to deploy nuclear weapons, and they would have far more reliance on, how to put it, low aircraft or medium bomber style systems being able to do it, because they can disperse them more widely around the Empire. It's not going to be a concentrated heavy bomber fleet, more a dispersed light bomber fleet.
So basically,
because of infrastructure and sustainment, it's the same problem they were dealing with in the 1920s and 30s. You have to remember, there's the reason why the British go a different policy route than the Japanese and the Americans with their carriers and with their forces, because of the logistics and infrastructure of supporting stuff, which would be something the other side of the world from their major infrastructure hub, or sustaining it from these things, unless they're going to have to go through the policy of building up multiple major infrastructure hubs with all the expense of that.
Well,
you can do it, but it's going to be very expensive, and it's going to take a lot of your money to do it and then sustain it.
there is a hybrid system here that has just occurred to me. I think Alex is absolutely right. You can't really maintain multiple forces of strategic bombers across the world. But given the hypothetical threat axis facing the British Empire, you might not have to. Given that China doesn't really join the nuclear club until later, but there will probably be some assets of the Triad that can counter that already in place, because you probably won't want your land-based silos in the UK because, well, that would be a little bit, well, then I suppose the UK is going to get nuked anyway, but you kind of want to have your silos in a position where they're going to draw nukes away from the UK. Given that the threat axis is in terms of actual nations you would expect a nuclear attack from in this particular case would likely be the USSR and China, in that case, I would say you could actually bring together a strategic bombing force based in the UK and the UK alone. I do, however, think Alex is absolutely right. You would see an onboard carrier deterrent. You would see multi-use medium aircraft and what would later become known as interdictors. But can
I just want to ask, when it comes to the Triad, why do you think certain assets are being dispersed?
Well,
it's not so that you can draw fire away from, say, your industrial or your political heartland in the UK. It's so you have the ability to strike anywhere that does eventually attack you.
Well, yes, that is true, but I was more specifically in that case talking about the very specific case of land-based silos and how they do have that secondary effect of drawing warheads, rather than that being the primary case for dispersion of those assets.
And also, the reason why Britain doesn't have land-based silos is because we don't have enough of the suitable terrain to put them in. Not because we don't want them.
Yeah.
We don't have enough suitable granite of the right type to stick them in.
Just very quickly, Alex, is there anywhere in a federalized empire where such positions would exist that you would want to put silos? Anywhere you can think of?
There's a fair number, but again, this is where we come to the idea
that have
what's the range
right sort of terrain. You're looking again. You'd be looking at places like South Africa and Australia.
And Sudan.
Yeah, Sudan's. And there are other issues with putting it in Sudan.
Yeah.
Sudan, like I said, the land.
You can't put enough. Not terrain-wise, yes, it works. But the trouble is, it's not just the physical geography; it's the human geography you have to deal with when you talk about these things.
Yeah, which is what I brought up the last time we talked about this.
I mean,
I'm currently getting mildly squashed by a poodle. But the trouble is, if you're putting it in South Africa and if you're putting it, basically until you get something which is fully, it is sufficiently capable of doing basically the entire circuit around the Earth, which it can in theory do. Any of these systems can in theory do because they have the theory. As long as they get high enough in terms of their orbit, it works, but it's going to be the British are going to have to develop a lot of effort to develop it, and then they're going to have to persuade those countries to have it. And what the British might end up going with is actually it's better to have multiple squadrons of ballistic missile submarines because you can operate some of them out of Australia, some of them out of Britain, some of them out of sort of South Africa, and then they're part of the Triad. They've got these things, but these boats can move around to where they can be in range.
Oh my god, Alex, you're a genius! I've just thought of something I completely forgot about.
Is it a submarine?
Anyone else get concerned about this?
No.
I got a
Why
question.
do you think I said
No,
that?
hang on.
Okay.
Can I do my epiphany, please? Because it's kind
Yeah.
of genius. Transporter erector launchers. Large-scale transporter erector launchers. Like the Russians have. You get your land-based launch capability, but it's mobile.
So Fleet. No, hold on.
Why?
What are we talking about scale and range for these things? Because those typically aren't intercontinental units.
There are intercontinental erector
There are
launcher
some,
vehicles.
but because of the way that the Russians built and deployed them, they are actually intermediate range ones or short range ones because they're smaller, and the most that they want to use them to strike is areas that are in that kind of range, like Western Europe, or looking further south or further east, the Caucasus, the not the Urals,
Wait.
Azerbaijan and whatnot, and further south, Georgia, etc. You also then look at things in the Far East and look at, there's South Korea right there. There's Japan right over there. You've got South Vietnam as an example of something of the day. Those are typically what those mobile launchers are used to target is those types of shorter range things. The silos, the nuclear missile submarines, and for an early period, the long-range strategic bombers were primarily used to strike distant targets like continental United States, Canada, etc.
No, you're absolutely right, Hood. You're absolutely right.
You've given me a genius idea. Instead of on trucks, why don't we put the nuclear weapons on trains?
That could work.
That's going to damage the tracks.
Not really.
Beyond anything else.
Nuclear tracks in Australia and Africa.
No,
so you can't reliably hit the nuclear weapons because they could be in Tanzania by the end of the day, and you're hitting Kenya.
You don't even need that or dedicated tracks. Like, those trains existed. The US had them and the Russians had them. They are a viable method to move and launch ICBMs. But particularly, Hood has highlighted something that I did want to bring up. In this particular scenario, well, while the trains would probably be beat in India, so you'd have the broad gauge to fit them on, that's also where I'd put the IRBM erector launchers, because at that point, they do fit in that. Based around northern India and what we would know as Pakistan, or possibly in Pakistan if it is a part of the Federation, that gives you strike capability against places like the Urals, against places like the Caucasus.
Hold on. Are you aware of the terrain in northern India, by the way?
Yes, I absolutely am. But I'm also...
It's a bit rough.
It's not exactly flatland for this kind of thing. And you are doing as much guesswork in aiming it in a direction, hoping that it can acquire its target later.
Yeah, well, India, like stuff like the Kashmiri Plain and the various deserts, could be a good place for them.
I mean, they're also fairly high up those deserts, so you'd have a better chance launch. Oh, I hate how I'm slowly. No, I'm not being convinced by this. This is still stupid. You are better off with basing it predominantly on potentially mobile launches in say Northern Africa.
Yes, that would work as well.
Okay, questionable opinion. Put them on the Tibetan Plateau or the Himalayan Plateau. That way you can get the maximum amount of range out of them because they'll be up really, really high.
No, because that's no. You'd have other problems with the altitude. There's the altitude to get, or the actual travel to get them from the assembly plant up the fucking mountains.
But there's railways up the mountains into like Nepal.
There's also issues with the storage and the actual topography and the terrain itself and weather conditions you'd have to be wary of. That's not a great idea.
And what I will just say is, all of everything I'm talking about, all these other components of this Imperial British nuclear strategy, Alex is still right. The core of the deterrent
strategy... The core of it's going to be the bomber squadrons and the submarines.
No, it's not even... The bomber squadrons are ancillary. It's going to be the subs. It's going to be a large fleet of SSBNs. But...
It's going to be the subs and the carriers.
No, not the carrier. Not the
carriers. The carriers are also going to be ancillary.
Yeah.
The carriers are going to probably be your primary tactical system.
Yeah.
If you're going to use tactical nukes.
Because especially once miniaturization comes in, you can quite easily sling a couple of nuclear bombs under a fighter bomber and send that out in squadrons.
But the reason that I am suggesting the things I am suggesting is that for a full-scale nuclear power, which this non-declined Britain would be, these extra capabilities are valuable quivers in the nuclear bow. There's a reason why a lot of the larger nuclear states like the US and the Soviet Union did possess them. Because they are valuable additions, and they do serve a purpose.
Yeah, but a lot of the reason the US has them is because of internal politics.
Well, yes, but they do serve a purpose, and for the British Empire, these weapons would serve a purpose as well. But with that little discussion, and the discussion of, I think Ruinon has, they've got it. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I know we've had a lot of tangents, and I know that we've had a lot of long discussions, but I hope you've enjoyed them as much as I've enjoyed listening to them. Thank you, Foxo, Dr. Clark, Moe, the guy that everyone likes, also known as the Dutchman, Hood, Dragon, Ruinon, and of course myself, and of course our wonderful audience, without whom ramblings would simply not be possible.
Okay, I also want to just say something to Hood quickly. Ruinon, you've aged like milk. Hood, you've aged like fine wine.
Anyway, moving swift before this descends into a massive slap
And
fight.
I just have an age.
Before this
Would you like to age?
Before this descends into a massive slap fight, which it will do.
Fight. I'll have you know,
Alex, do not make me start handing out server mutes. Because I need to
fight with a cat,
finish.
therefore I will win the cat fight.
I swear to God, if people don't... Right, okay. So, like I said, please like and subscribe. It really does help. Please, obviously, I have passed 330 now permanently, so we are on our way to 500. So any help people can give is absolutely appreciated. If you like what you're seeing here, please do go over to the Patreon page, where for a low, low price, you can help Fleet continue to fleet for all that he's worth. Obviously, do go and support Drac and Dr. Clark. And of course, since the website is now live, please do go, if you can, and help support the funding of the Shipshape crew going off on our merry little journey to the land of the rising sun.
Just add a little note there. The site's been soft launched, so we can do some troubleshooting if there is any, and it's properly being launched on Wednesday. So basically, please go try it out now and tell me if it's working, because if there's any problems, I have to fix it. Okay?
Yes.
And I really want it working properly for Wednesday.
And this is the perfect way to do it, because I do not have a large audience, so it will not be too much traffic.
For Fleet, I think I can do about 350.
All right, thank you everybody for watching.
I will tell you, Ruinon, if you go for 500, you can really help Fleet out, and then you also get a very nice rank in the the supporters, and you get to do there's a lot of good premium benefits for doing that.
Yeah, but then I have to live with the knowledge that I paid Fleet 500 American simoleons.
Also,
you gave 500 to Shipshape.
Yeah, you didn't pay me.
I don't Shipshape.
I don't see any of this money. I'm having to fund. I'm like Dr. Clark is generously helping me get out to Japan, but in terms of funding myself while I am there,
It's the same for all the Shipshape. It's the thing is we are funding roughly $5,000 each to support the costs of the hotels and the travel expenses and all those things. And that will cover the vast majority of that stuff. But once we're out there, food and things we have out there are going to be entirely purchased by us.
Yep.
The biggest expense every year is books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to think about it, because technically while I'm out there, I will have recently cleared my credit card and my overdraft.
Oh dear.
So I'm possibly going to hand my bank cards to the only person who won't actually spend them for me.
Me?
Leslie?
No, Glyn. He actually he has his own money, so he won't spend mine.
I'll have my own money.
My sister's trying to take my money now. No, that's not happening, definitely.
Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Take care.